then, yeah.
Yep, and then he flips into that.
So we'll flip immediately, yeah.
Yeah, if you kill the Black Knight or one of those two things.
The Black Knight's pretty terrible.
Alright. Oh, actually, you can't do that.
Why?
Oh, he's not black on that side.
Yep.
Oh, never mind. It's not a White Knight. It's a Black Knight.
Yeah.
Okay. Poof.
Dead.
Kills Knight's dead.
And now you're gonna have to sack one of your big creatures when she does the flying thing.
I am not fussed.
With your 52 life.
I'm not going to win this game, but I'm just going to make it very annoying for other people.
That's a playstyle that I
It's
continually adhere to.
Literally just playing mono black swampy things.
I love mono black swampy
Yeah,
things.
like there's no. The absolute worst card in this deck is probably the Lash Wraith, or maybe a Pestilence if I get it in a four-person game.
So
But the Bubbling Cauldron and Festering Newt thing was surprisingly effective this game.
Well, when you have like
Three of
other
them. I got
people.
3 of the 4. Yeah.
Let me see if I can find you, Jordan. I
Does he start at 3?
I don't think we're friends yet.
He had whatever he has. So he has
So-
1 counter on him because it did.
Yeah.
He did 3 to this and 2 to that.
Although, could she tick him up?
Yeah.
Because he flipped, so you can.
No, because you already
okay.
invoked him this turn.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if the flip initiates.
He doesn't leave play and come back. He's.
Oh, okay.
I assume, unless I and Goth want to
Does
correct
anyone
me.
have flying?
Nope.
Nope.
Still punch him in the head.
6, 7, 52. I mean, it's gotta be you.
Oh yeah.
So 3, 3, and a. What are your creatures?
6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6.
Oh shit.
So only 2 of your
just-
wolves can attack, but
Just this one's coming your way.
Okay. I take 4. Oh no, they didn't come with the counter, did it?
no.
So 3. I'm at 58. And I'm
49. Because
Sorry.
you were at 53. You're
Yeah,
at
sorry,
49 now.
Thank you.
Or no, you were at 52. That's why you're at 49. Sorry. I
Wouldn't that
can't
be
have
48?
math.
Wouldn't that be 48 if I was at 52?
I guess I
No,
can,
because she only did
Oh,
3 damage.
right.
I guess I can do the thing.
You can do all 3 of them?
Okay.
What are you trying to do?
Doing all 3
Once he
again?
flips, I can activate.
Yep. Wait. What?
Once the new Garrick flips, you can activate it.
That's what I thought.
Really?
Yes.
Why wouldn't?
He's a new
Because he-
planeswalker.
it's
Different, though, yeah.
It's different.
It's the same card. Okay, no, that's fine. I guess if it's a different card, sure.
This is a.
All right, hold on. So the new Garrick that flips, once it flips, you can activate it, right?
But you already activated the other side earlier in the turn.
Yeah, but it's totally different.
Yeah, I think it's
no?
you activated Garrick. It's still Garrick.
Okay. All right, maybe it's not.
Okay, so
Sorry.
no wolf for you.
He did
You
not
didn't
leave the
leave
battlefield.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, like flipping doesn't exile and come back.
Ow.
All right, so Rankle did the thing. So
Okay,
let's
well,
see.
wait, hold on. Got the same flip. Garrick gets 1 activation. He's the same walker. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So he got the activation before he flipped.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, we got it.
So are you doing all the things?
Done. Yes.
Are you doing all
Okay.
those 3 things?
Rankle. Can you bring it up
Sack a
again
creature.
so I can
You
remember
should
what they
definitely
are?
do sack a creature because you sack one of your wolves and
Yeah.
your Garricks get pumped up by
And you
1.
kill one of these big things and something over there.
Yeah.
Are we friends?
I don't care if you make me
Do you
sack
wanna-
it.
do you want a
I would
card?
love to dig
Do you
through.
wanna-
Sure.
Yeah, do you want a card? Are we friends? You're not gonna hit me?
That was
I don't
your
know. I'm
life
not gonna hit you
total.
next turn.
What's your life total?
With
Val?
anything?
Nope.
Nothing?
Nope.
Nothing? No.
I don't have anything
no
that tramples.
Damage, no damage to me?
I do not have anything that tramples.
Okay.
Or flies, unless I draw it and I can't attack with it. Because
Yeah, well...
all those black creatures with haste.
Well, I don't want to choose, I don't want to choose to discard a card currently. So I think we'll choose the second, third thing?
Lose a life, sack a creature?
Everyone
Everybody
loses
loses a life, draws a card, and sacks
So
a
in
creature.
how many of each? So one of each? Oh, okay.
Right,
So lose a life and draw a card.
Yep,
Sack
and
a
then
creature.
Sacks a creature.
I will
lose a
sack
life.
a germ.
I draw a card.
Night Goth.
I got...
And then I sack a creature. Alright, I guess I'll sack the Merrily.
Creatures you control get +3/+3 and trample. So Garrick, Cursed Huntsman went off.
How? You
So-
already pumped him. You said you were activating it for 0.
Yeah.
To get 2
That
wolves.
means
That's
you
your
did the
activation.
one.
Yeah, next turn.
Yeah,
he
I
can-
put that on the board and was like, didn't I already use them?
Next turn, he goes
Yeah,
off.
Next
So,
turn.
okay.
Yeah. Not yet, friend.
Not yet, friend.
Okay.
Yeah. What's he at?
He's at 5. Well,
Okay.
he's at 6.
6. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a big
so
problem.
once that wins.
Yeah.
The thing with the stuff.
The Garrick.
That's it.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm really having fun with this little
Okay.
red cap thing.
I need an app.
Draw. Okay.
Alright.
Side.
You're just looking forlornly at all the wolves on this side of the board, aren't you?
Nothing's good.
Nope. Where did I draw?
Good night.
helpful. Not helpful. Let's see.
How big are your leeches?
6/6. Let's take a look around the table here. So I've got a Lashrite with nothing attached to it, a Lashrite on a 6/6 Germ, well, a 6/6 Lashrite Germ, and then a 6/6 Squelching Leeches. You should be probably more concerned with that.
I'm going to destroy the weapon that's currently on the germ.
Ooh, poof. And the Germ dies.
Okay. Then what else do I want to do?
You want me to pour your key?
Please. And if you're really feeling nice, just throw 2... No, you leave the tea bag in, just throw 2 Splendas in.
There's that sugar-free syrup on top.
Is it flavored?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
Sorry, we should probably be... So I've got a Lashrite and a Squelching Leeches and a tapped thingy. There's way too much Planeswalker-y, wolfy shit going on.
trying
over
to
there.
attack you with a giant DM.
Okay, I'll take 7. Go to 41.
I get a card. Yay.
You want me to
That's an
Why?
answer. Because it's non-human
Oh, from the
creature.
cat?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yay card.
You are my heroine.
And then I'm going to sit.
You dropped your tea bag in.
Really? Did you just... I dropped my tea bag in? I'm
Tabor
teabagging.
is
Alright.
you.
Ah!
At the end of your turn,
Okay.
I
I'm
feel like
tapping 2,
Ralphie.
tapping a Tempting Witch, sacking a food, and taking 3 of your life from you.
Huh.
Sorry.
Yep.
Nice.
Witch's Oven.
Tempting Witch.
Tempting
Yep.
Witch.
Okay,
That's... The Tempting Witch is
Welcome
gonna
to
kill
this
you.
world.
Untap.
The Tempting Witch is gonna kill you.
Draw.
I'm very tired, so I am okay with it. And I have to go to Costco tomorrow. I'm tired already.
Oh, I'm gonna let that cool, and I'm not gonna be an idiot and try to suck down piping hot tea.
Yeah, don't do that.
That could be good.
If you want to see me scream in pain, do you want to see me scream in pain?
I'm sitting next to you, like, within earshot, so, like, maybe no.
Merrily Rider.
Nice.
Oh. Doop, 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 doop. Be free to the carrot.
Right?
Would Madame, when you, on her way back in, hand me a carrot? So I want to reach my sick hands in and grab one.
Yeah, don't do that.
We'll give you your own dish of carrots.
I just want one.
Everything's bad.
Everything is awful.
Pass turn.
Okay. Untap. Upkeep. Draw. That's a thing. I'm gonna play Swamp. And then I'm going to tap 6 of those swamps for a 7/7 Nightmare.
Nice.
And fuck it, I'm going to pay 2 life to attach the Lash Wraith to it. It's a 14/14 Nightmare that cannot attack this turn, unfortunately. Pass turn.
Okay. Your turn, Dad.
39.
Oh god.
So literally I am...
6 stream.
Yeah, well, I mean...
So this is a thing now.
So that's a... There you go.
Yep.
It's a Nightmare with a Lash Wraith on it. And I've got 7 swamps in play. That's kind of cute. And the Bubbling Cauldron. Only 1 bless, doesn't affect stack. Alright. So all your creatures are +3 in trample.
I don't feel like nothing right now.
Well, you can kill both of them.
Let's do this thing and gain 2 life because we were barely holding it down.
I just want 1. Make me 2. Really? Thank you. You got that?
No, I thought I was gonna leave it there.
Wow. I didn't know you...
Wait, you're gross. Like,
What?
why don't you get a plastic bag and throw that shit in there?
Because those are used plastic gloves from painting, so
Oh,
after the
I
stream...
thought they were clean.
There's 1 tissue down there, yeah, and I'm going to pick up everything after the stream. But thank you for calling that out on the stream.
6 stream. Shit show.
Actually, that makes it easier if I just actually grab that little garbage can and throw all my tissues in it.
Yeah, how about that? You're a dick.
It was like poking with the carrot.
Good.
Probably not the best idea to kick 2 box cutters all the way with my bare feet.
No, that is not a good idea. At all.
So what are you doing?
I'm waiting for DM to come back.
I mean, you can win the game right now. Well, no.
Well, I just played a Master of the Wild Hunt.
Cool.
I have not done this thing.
Do you even know what he does?
Picks up to create wolves.
Yeah. So he's
1/1
gonna
death
create
touch.
a black
Yep.
wolf.
Well,
Well, it's not a 1/1. It's. Can I get it?
now we're
Anything?
4/4.
Anything else?
Here. Here, there
So I
you
know
go.
it's a different wolf.
Yeah. Here, a big one.
No, this is fine. I'll just put the little wolf down here.
The little 4/4 wolf.
Well, because this one's death touch.
Right.
Well, actually, it'd be a 5/5 because of the spirit of the
What?
wolf. That's,
Yeah.
I have that card too.
It's a 5/5. There's a lot of stuff going on Val's side of the board here.
Yeah, it's a lot to manage.
Many wolves. Many wolves.
So 3/3 wolf, 6/6 wolf, 6/6 wolf. Garrick the Veil Cursed, Master of the Hunt. That's a 6/6.
Hold on to that.
7/7
Yeah.
wolf, 6/6 thingy. Rankle. Yeah, lots of stuff.
So
I keep
what's
forgetting to
happening?
post to our Instagram, which I have not been completely neglecting.
Look at all my
So,
beautiful
I
food.
mean, literally, you can kill those 2 right now.
So
And
can
we
you
can
pull
start a different game.
this one up?
Sure. What is your question? It doesn't have haste, so next turn you can kill something.
I know, I just want to read it.
Wait, you have a nightmare
wait.
out?
Master of the Wild.
He
How
does.
did he
and
get
this-
all that crap out?
The Nightmare
No,
Journal
last
turn.
turn.
Oh god.
It's a big nightmare that it couldn't attack last turn. He put the lash right on it, and then it just sits there.
Yeah. It keeps Rankle
How
from
big is
attacking
it?
this turn.
11 something.
14
Nightmare.
14.
Because it
Yeah.
flies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has, imagine that, power and toughness equal to the swamps in play.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the deck.
Beginning of your upkeep. Okay.
How much mana did you put out? Oh, because
Tales of the
someone-
Tomb.
Yeah, the one that gives her 2 life.
Oh god, more dad jokes. Werewolf, they're wolf.
Oh no.
Okay, what's happening?
Dad jokes forever. Alright.
Combat time?
You guys don't play?
Nope.
You've enough 6/6ers that. Nah, anyway, do your thing. What can I say? The deck's a real dog. Yeah.
Oh.
Insert Dick Wolf joke here.
Wow. that
PG, produced by
that escalated quickly. From dad jokes to inserting penises.
No, Dick.
I mean, Dick Wolf from Law and Order.
I didn't even get
This
that.
went like wherever his
Yeah.
I know.
Right there with you.
I know.
I
Okay,
didn't even like.
what's happening?
He's too old for our memes.
Yeah. And Dick Wolf, is that the character or the actor?
No, he's the creator of Law and Order.
It's always like produced by
Okay,
Dick
guys.
Wolf.
I'd like to get
Sorry,
through
go.
this game.
Yeah, sorry.
Come on.
Attack.
Like,
Jeez.
let's do something. I don't care what it is.
I don't care what you do, just do something.
You have 3 over there that are untapped.
1, 2, 3.
I
Yep.
don't know why the red cap just suddenly turned country.
So,
I don't care what you do.
Guys.
what?
Okay.
Oh, see, now you're not going to wave your magic wand. I've got a magic wand. So.
Wow.
Stop talking. Combat's happening.
Yes. Huh.
Jeez.
Okay.
I can't attack you with a flyer, correct?
You could, but I'll kill it.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Declare attack.
Declare attacks. Rankle.
Uh-huh.
And how many wolves is that? Is that 3 wolves?
3 wolves.
Who's
And
attacking
there's-
what?
Yeah. Who's attacking who?
3 wolves are coming at you,
Me.
and this flyer is coming at you.
So that's 18 damage worth of wolves.
18 damage worth of
Well, hold
wolves.
on.
Are
Fuck!
Fog! No combat damage!
Nice.
they? Mm-hmm.
Alright, so then none of the rankle stuff happens, right? Because
Nope.
it's got to do combat damage to a player.
Yep.
Okay.
You just get these non-wolves
So,
out of here.
and you have been open.
I do.
I wonder why.
Game.
And
I
that's
wonder-
fair.
Just start sacking food.
Yeah.
Just start eating the food.
I'm gonna start eating.
Gobble,
food.
gobble,
Well,
gobble,
not
gobble.
even.
Not right now.
Okay.
I can wait till the end of my turn.
Are you done?
Her turn.
Okay. Untap.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Do, do,
Upkeep. Draw. Okay. Fine.
There's a lot of men on this deck. And
You know
I
you
have not
killed yourself.
drawn
Yeah.
out of it.
Why?
Because you don't have a flyer and I kill you with the nightmare.
No, or she sacks
What's the
food.
14-14 flying?
How the fuck did that end up being a 14?
It's got a lash wraith on
It's
it.
a 7/7, and then I put a lash wraith on it that gives it power and toughness plus is equal to swamps.
Oh.
Oh, fuck, I forgot.
And that was like she can't attack with the rankle. I'm like, are you sure?
Okay.
I didn't realize that had boosted it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Five.
7 was gonna kill you anyway.
To do the
Yeah, hold on.
Keeper of Fables. And then I'm gonna sit. Because unfortunately...
How many cards you got in your hand? 2.
Actually, you know what? I'm not gonna sit.
Because if I don't kill her, you're gonna dump them. Or one of them at least.
I'm fine with that. Past turn. Are you doing something?
End of your
yet?
turn.
That works.
And tap
The Little Red Riding Hood thing.
4. I'm gonna eat 2 foods.
My aunt did this
and
cool
gain
thing where
6
she had,
life.
like, bloody makeup over
Cool.
her face. I'll probably just end up doing that for Halloween.
I need a proper
So,
adult.
although...
I'm bad at adulting.
Well,
Are you
I'm
keeping
counting
her?
I'm counting on him killing her. You
Yeah,
gonna kill him?
but...
Kill her?
It depends on what I draw.
Fine.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So-
Well, it's already done. We've
Yeah.
already done it.
I mean, I have nothing in my hand, so.
I mean, no, with
It
the
happens.
with the nightmare.
You were in, like, a mood.
I'm not drinking
You're
any.
in-
I haven't had a thing to drink tonight.
You're in, like, a little demon mood.
Yep.
Some theme. Some music.
Oh,
I have a tiny
Yeah, I'm like
tiny
very,
little bit of.
very warm and would like to put a hoodie on after this game.
Giant opportunity.
Yay!
It's a giant opportunity. Come on down to Crazy Eddie's Used Swamps. We have a giant opportunity for you.
I don't like it.
Alright.
Crazy Eddie's Used Squelching Leeches.
Please no.
Crazy Eddie's Used Lash Rights. I really like that. Don't eat them.
Alright, pass.
I'm gonna go on an adventure.
Ew.
Hold on, I'm going on an adventure.
Oh no.
That. How many nights do you have? None. Why?
Oh,
It doesn't
right.
count as
Why? It's
itself.
nights.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't.
Other.
Aw.
Yeah.
Oh, alright, I'm just gonna play it.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're not doing any sort
There
of
you go. I
adventure.
play a 2-1. I thought it was gonna be at least one.
No.
Yeah.
I made that.
There are things to get knights back from my graveyard, but I haven't gotten any of them, so.
Yeah.
I don't know who Ayara is, but I hope it's the dragon.
I know Ayara is the black elf.
Yeah.
Isn't she
The
the,
Black
like,
Elf
princess
noble.
of Lochthwain
Yes.
or whatever?
Like it's the dragon.
No,
Although there's
she's,
blood
she's
on
the
it.
awesome
We
Pentecost,
slayed the.
right?
That's
Yes.
Ayara.
Yeah.
First of Lochthwain.
She's the awesome
She
new
looks
Ryan
like
Pentecost
a
card.
bitch. I like her outfit.
I'd do it. No, sorry, what?
No, fuck off. It's a Ryan Pentecost.
Yep.
Yep.
I like the background a lot.
They haven't given him any swamps, so he can't do a deck with that.
no.
So apparently WotC has to give him a swamp first.
Okay, so what are you doing?
And then I'm going to equip the Lash Writhe on the Smitten Swordmaster.
Fine.
So it is now a 9/8 lifelinking knight.
Great.
And I'm going to pass turn.
You didn't
Really?
kill
I
me.
didn't kill you.
Why did you do that?
What do you mean, why did I do that? Because I can survive the
Because
wolf
he's
onslaught,
a chaos muppet.
right? And I can't kill you. Got too much life for me to kill you in one swing. And you're gonna gain more with all that fucking food over there.
There's only 3 left now.
Good! You eat them! Eat them now! Eat the foods! Eat all the
Kind of
foods!
pointless.
Yeah.
I knew he was gonna do that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Oh, well.
I thought you were gonna.
No, I mean, I didn't think he would.
Yeah.
Well, because then it just becomes arch enemy, right? Then it just becomes you guys trying to kill me.
Yep.
And I'm perfectly fine if she lets me draw a card and makes me lose a life and sack my Smitten Swordmaster.
Hope I learned from my mistake. But I don't live through it.
Nope.
Nope.
Oh, I didn't draw a card for this.
Okay.
Did I draw a card for it?
Do you? I don't.
Last time.
Oh,
It says
okay.
whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield, put a
Okay.
1/1 counter on it and draw a card. Well, that should
Let me bring up the Whoozy What's It again. I'm just
I
curious.
should have dropped.
The Master of the Hunt. Right? So you tap it, and then you tap all the untapped wolf creatures. Yeah, so you don't want to. Yeah.
If she saves it and just like
Right.
kills your nightmare.
Right. But then she's got to tap all of her wolves, and she dies to you guys.
So, yeah. It doesn't make sense for her to try to kill both of us at one time because then you just take her out.
Well, I was surprised she didn't try to kill both of you. Well, she did.
She did, and I did a fog.
And you might have
But I
another
would
fog.
not suggest that.
Well, I mean, she should absolutely swing at you with a flyer. Like, what's to lose? Right?
that you
She
have a
loses
flyer?
a flyer, and then you hit her in the head.
I just
Basically,
proved that.
like-
Yeah, I just proved that I'm not gonna kill her until both of you are dead.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. I would not put money on that.
I probably wouldn't either.
Like,
So I'm tapping that, gaining.
trust me.
Once
Playing
upon a
once
time,
upon a
I have no idea what that does. Let's see.
I know it's an
she
instant.
gets
I'm
to
just
look
fucking
at
doing it now.
5 cards.
I need more cards in my fucking hand.
Once
Well,
upon a
you only get
time.
to pick one.
I know.
There's the first time you cast this game, you cast it for... So if it's in your opening hand, you cast it for free, and then you look at the first top 5, reveal a creature or land, put it in your hand, rest in the bottom. Cool.
Yep.
But not a Planeswalker. Or an instant or sorcery, just a creature or land.
Yeah.
Got it. It's pretty cool. Matt Stewart. Oh, cool. I have a Matt Stewart Cave Girl Demon token.
And then I put the rest. Can you
Oh, I'm sorry.
back on the.
If it is
Fine,
the...
library, order.
Yes.
I don't know what order they're in.
So there you go. Random.
Cool.
I have to reveal it. Blackridge Troll.
Cool. What is it? Spell it.
Hold on.
Ugh. It's a mess.
So, that is the card you revealed.
Yes.
8/8 Trample Haste. When there's a battlefield, target opponent gets 3 white goat creature tokens. Any opponent. Cool. You played it?
Troll.
Alright, who's getting goats?
Who's getting goats?
Who's getting the goat? Bah!
Well, I guess you should get the goats because you're keeping me alive.
Alright, I'll take
But
some
he's
goats.
gonna kill you. But he's gonna kill you.
With the goats.
I'm not gonna kill you with the goats, but the goats are gonna give me 12 life.
Yeah, I don't want that to happen.
Wait, 12
Yeah.
life?
I forgot
Yeah.
about.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
no, sorry, they're giving me 3 life.
I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
You don't need any more life. You're at 39.
I'll take you.
I'll give you some goats.
Yay, go.
So every time a goat dies, Val gets 3
Take
life.
some goats.
That's fine.
Yep.
I'm at 8.
No, every time. No, bring that card back up. Let's
It's-
read that again.
It's at the beginning of combat. On my turn, any opponent may sacrifice a creature.
Right. Oh,
Right.
sorry, if you sack a
Thinking that
goat.
it-
Right. That's not if they die. That's
Right.
if we choose to sack.
Oh, it's not the goats. Right, it's any creature.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
Then we can tap Clackbridge Troll.
Goat boy. What's up?
Yeah.
What's up, bunny?
Hey.
How was dinner? So yes, we are in costume for the stream.
Okay.
Murderous red cap. Hit one.
All right. Now what?
It's got trample and haste.
Yep.
And it's bigger than an 8/8 right now. It's
It's not boosted because it's not a wolf, though, is it?
No, you remember Garrick
Oh, I also
just boosts all creatures.
I also
Like-
draw a card.
Oh, did D went home, so it was just you and Jay for dinner. That's cool.
Okay. And what are the Garricks doing?
Oh, well, one is
Or the
gone.
one Garrick.
Yeah, it's a super complex
So
deck.
it's mana everywhere.
That's how she moves.
There you go.
My brain isn't working enough to play this right now.
I'm gonna have
Gotcha.
to take off this mask soon.
I am
Yeah,
very,
you gotta kill it.
very warm.
Kill it.
Yep. Sorry.
If you want to shed your Red Riding Hood robes.
That sounds really bad.
Ahem.
So you're the only one with flyers still. Yes?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm just gonna move this up there. Did not do this thing, so I'll do this thing.
Yeah, your bill tab was 3 times the lunch tab for... Yeah, I
Yeah.
suspect that was... But hey, it's a great restaurant. I'm sorry I didn't make it, but I needed a nap.
What the fuck are my creatures coming in at right now?
They come in with... nothing.
They're-
They get it, but they don't come in with counters. They just
Yeah,
get,
no, they
and they
get
get the counter from that.
So.
If it's a
then-
token, they don't get a
Mhm.
counter.
Yeah.
So, but your troll is like a 12/12 at this point.
They get freaking math.
Yeah, that deck is super complicated.
Well,
Murder
okay, so I'm
someone.
making another wolf with
Mother Death Touch Wolf.
Death Touch.
Here.
I don't know this. This is my little Death Touch wolf area.
Yeah, you're using all your own dice. Yeah. Except that big one. Alright.
Just gonna move you guys here.
doing?
God, I don't even know at this point. No.
Attack somebody with the flyer.
No.
Okay.
You
I thought you were just
have a
going to kill
flyer.
it with the master.
Huh?
I thought you were just going to kill it with the master anyway.
What?
So attack somebody with the kill somebody with the master, and then kill my flyer with the master of the hunt.
I would tap all of my wolves to.
Well, yeah, but you do it right before my turn
No,
starts.
but you have to tap the master to kill something.
Right, but you do it right before my turn starts.
Yes, but she can't attack with the master.
I meant this
and
thing with
then-
Rankle.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
meant,
Funny.
yeah, kill somebody with Rankle and.
Oh, jeez.
The only one she could kill with Wrinkle right
All
now
women
is
have
me.
death touch. Wow.
That's really funny.
All right.
The only one she could kill with Wrinkle is me right now. And I'm okay if
Well,
that
you
needs
could
to be
gain
done.
life with food.
You could gain life
I
with food.
could.
Gain 3 life and go to 8.
Yeah.
No, I think Rankle still kills you. She's got 9 damage with Rankle.
Oh, Wrinkle's at 9.
No, he's not at 9.
He's
Is that
3 plus
6?
1 when it came in, plus 3 from the.
No, it didn't get the +1
Oh,
because
right.
it got played before.
Got it.
So
He's at 8.
He just has.
No, it's
that.
a 6
Yeah.
because she's
not.
putting the stuff
Oh,
there.
got
So
it.
No,
she
it's
can
a
see
6.
the-
It's a
Yeah.
6. Got it.
Yeah.
My fault.
So I could eat her food and be just out of range.
Yep.
Or I could just sit and watch.
Or you could
it
just
on
sit.
islands.
You should not sit.
Yeah,
You
have-
need to
You
attack.
have 18 damage of wolves.
You need to attack with that deck.
And remember, you have death touch wolves, so if you attack with everything but 1 death touch wolf, whatever you tap the master hunt for kills something. Because the death touch wolf.
Oh, man, my fucking
But-
brain.
Let me see, like
She
attack.
has to tap all untapped wolves.
Right, so attack with everything but like 2 death touch wolves.
It has to be.
All wolves.
Right, all untapped wolves. So,
So
you can
you
attack
leave one
and you leave a
untapped
death
wolf.
touch one.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't think they do the damage. I think the damage total.
Let's
Read
look
the
at it.
card.
Yep.
They don't do the damage. It's their
Yeah.
total, yeah.
It's the total of wolves
Y'all
that you.
are
Oh, it's the number of wolves?
Shit out of me.
Yes. I have that card.
Deals
Like-
damage equal to its power to target creature.
Each
Yeah.
wolf. Okay, sorry.
It is. You leave a death toucher and 1 death touch point. Well, it deals damage equal to its power. It doesn't deal damage.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's death
Oh,
touch.
Jesus Christ, I can't even right now.
And if you're still watching, give us a ruling. I'm pretty sure it's the death touch damage, but
Can you hand me the carrot bucket?
I've reached the point in this deck where, like, I'm done.
yeah, you need to play
No,
that a
it's so
bunch of
attack and
times.
kill someone.
Just
Basically.
hit somebody with 24 or whatever.
Yeah, I don't even know what the total is right now.
Alright, count it up.
18.
DM helper, count it up.
24, 31, and if you just leave those, and if you add that on top, it's 39 damage.
Oh, you're at 39.
Yeah, but I will kill a
I know
bunch
you
of
do,
shit.
yeah.
And gain.
Attack with all the
Time
death
life.
touch.
But we'll get him down to killing distance.
Why would you attack with all the death touch wolves? I'll just take it. They're not that big.
Or you tap the master to kill the thing that the germs attach to, and then.
Sure, but I mean, I still have 2/7/7 creatures.
They'll kill my other wolves? Why? You can play this deck.
Because if you activate Master with Death Touch Wolves, they'll kill all your other wolves? What?
Why?
No, you.
I just power target creature.
It's target creature. You.
Yeah, so the creature will deal damage back, right?
Yeah.
So if you attack with everything but 1 or 2 Death Touch Wolves, who cares if they die with the crackback?
Oh.
I guess.
I literally can't with this deck right now, and I have reached my brain limit. I don't know
Do you want to call it?
what the total is on the board. I don't know what these are at this point.
Okay.
Like, I'm kind of
Okay.
done.
So I would can we give you advice?
Just turn your anger dog sideways. Yes, you were
Just
explaining this very
turn
poorly.
turn your anger dog sideways. There you go.
How high are you
pick
right
up-
now?
How are you right now?
I would be fine with you just rolling a die and picking someone to kill.
There you go.
Jeez, alright. I don't know what the total of everything is. At this
So,
Well, we'll count
it's
it. We'll
at
help
least
you count
40.
it up.
like, if you didn't have counters on things, it might make it easier because then
I can't
we're.
remember. Fuck all, there aren't counters. So this gets +3. This gets plus more.
Well, yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm very, very seldom correct.
This gets +3. I don't know what these are at this point.
They're 1/1s to start, and then this boosts it, and then this. So
This
they
is-
get 4.
They're 5/5s.
This is just proof that wolves don't belong on Whore Island.
Hey, no, wolves totally belong on Whore Islands.
I don't know, man. I don't go to
Opposite of
I don't go to
wolves.
Whore Island to like, get
Okay.
ripped apart by wolves.
So, and since you're doing it in this wacky
Don't you
way,
kick shame.
just
don't
to
you ripped
tell
apart by
you,
wolf shame.
that is also hasty
Yup.
and big.
Jesus. I'm just like lost all capacity to magic at this point.
So,
Just for this deck. Just for this deck at
I'm
this
just
moment.
Well, it's a
really
completely new
tired
deck,
after
and it is
sleeping, like,
super
absolute
complicated.
shit all week.
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
So,
Yep, she's got a Garrick emblem.
14.
Why are you not
14.
paying attention? Go bury the spider.
Go bury this fight.
Jeez.
That sounds like an awful,
So,
awful
24
euphemism.
right here. This is 14 worth of damage. 2 of those, or does it create 1 or 2?
1.
Okay, so 1 of those can attack because it's not hasty.
Actually,
No,
let's
2
see.
of them can attack.
Yeah,
let's
2
put this one
can,
back there,
but
and these
1
two can.
needs to hang back. So you have 2 sets of 24 damage, like 24,
I'm not helping.
14, 10, and this is 12.
You're very distracting.
Okay. Stop.
Yes, it's like Thursday.
Fine.
No.
I'm using my phone to
Sorry.
add how much damage
Calculate.
because at this point, y'all are distracting.
So who's going where?
14.
Yeah, we're trying to
Yeah,
help,
how much
but
it
everything's
is.
distracting.
I mean, you have enough to probably kill both of them.
Who's
or
going
me.
where, you say, after being massively distracting?
Okay, she has 60 points of damage on the board.
Yep.
Well, yeah. That Death Touchy Wolf, I'm not counting because it can attack.
Not this one.
Yeah.
But I counted all the other creatures.
Yep.
That's if you attack with everything.
Yeah. So, do you just want to pick some to attack certain people?
Like,
Gonna go pumpkin. Good night,
I-
Ineth.
Good night.
I sort of don't get this right now. My brain can't like, absorb any more information this week.
Well, do you want to just attack with it?
Here, can I give you just hold this and this wolf back and attack with everything else?
Yeah.
Because then this can't kill you because you can tap that and this to kill this.
yeah, but you have 2 other creatures. How does that make sense for her?
If she's gonna swing at me,
Why would I not swing at you? Is a better question.
right?
I guess.
For you catch the man.
So what is this right now?
It is a 9/8 lifelinker.
Yeah, what else?
You might still be able to kill him.
I'm just saying, if you full swing at me, you're gonna get crushed by that. That's okay.
By what?
That and the 7/7 giant and a bunch of other shit.
I have other things in my hand.
Cool.
That's true.
Then do it.
So, I have big creatures. Jaybury has food and a witch where she can basically hit
Yeah.
you for 3 at a distance.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
But you're at 8, so you're not within my striking distance of that.
Okay. That's what I want to know.
I'm dead.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
I mean, honestly,
Yeah,
just
but if
swing
she
with
attacks with
18 worth of wolves
everything
somewhere.
and you have mono,
'Cause you can kill somebody every turn.
You do 3 and then
Well, everything is
yeah,
trample.
3
We'll
again.
try.
Yeah, everything is trample.
So
Right. It's all trample.
at this point, I'm willing to just be like,
Yeah.
just pick. But if I
Yeah,
shock
that
a
was-
goat, that giant doesn't attack.
And
Right,
then
but
she'll gain
you have
life.
to do it before the attacks are declared, so before
Yeah.
you know where it's going.
True. Do I want to
Yeah,
sack?
don't. She'll gain life.
It do-
I'll
Is a
gain life and
giant
draw a
coming at
card.
us? Is a giant coming at
Well,
us?
it's too late.
Right?
She hasn't declared attackers.
Not yet.
I mean, she's entering her attack step, so if you're gonna do it, do it.
Fine.
There you go. You gain 3 life, and the goat's gone bye-bye, and that thing's tapped.
One goat has been sacrificed to,
To
the giant.
More goats for the goat god.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, whatever.
So
That
now
can't attack.
Yeah.
you are missing that 12 points of damage and can only do 48.
Next up.
Okay.
Bad shot.
Rankle.
What is your nightmare again?
7/7. It will kill Rankle.
Yeah, that's mine. Okay. Wolves. Wolf. Flyer.
The 2 Death Touchers.
I was looking for them. They were hiding.
Okay.
Alright.
All
what are
hail
you
corn.
attacking?
Gain 3. Oh, and you get a card. You get to draw a card too.
Yep. So you
Yep.
gain 3 and draw a card.
Jesus, that card's fucking crazy.
I'll keep this one.
You know, you're taking away 1 wolf.
Yeah.
Okay.
So where's it going?
How much
Who are
mana
they
do you have
attacking?
left?
Me? 5 with
Because
a
he just got a card.
first passage. Have I played a man this turn?
I don't know.
Oh, maybe I should have left the giant
I do
open
not
and
think
let
that
her
I
use the
have.
ridge.
I mean, she's got a Rogue's Passage, so.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, she should have just tapped that and sent, like, a big thing at you.
She
I know.
could still send a big thing
6.
at me. Like,
So where are they going?
Using my little death. I need fucking tokens in this deck.
Yes, you do.
excuse me. You can kill me. It's fine. I'm
Make
ready to be
friends.
dead.
Make
Ready
friends.
to die.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm down. I'd send Wrinkle my way. Because that's enough to kill me, and
Yeah.
I don't have fog. I shouldn't tell you that, but I don't. I mean, I could eat a food, but I'm ready to
Be done.
let...
My death,
And
well, so I'm having fun, but it's almost like...
we need
It's
a,
not
we
almost
need a
midnight.
commander game.
yeah,
Yeah.
this game's. I mean, we get it's a new deck, but it is Dragon Ball.
I will send him at you and these 3 your way, and one of the death touch wolves. So
Alright. So what?
it's a
Oh
5.
crap. Her goats go back, so the giant is unleashed.
Yeah. Well, you can. I can sack any creature.
Oh, that's...
Is it in play now?
No, it's not. I had sacked the goat. And,
So
The- well, the goats
so
are
when
dead.
does Rankle trigger? Do we have to do that now before taking combat?
No,
damage?
after we take
It's
combat
after.
damage.
Okay, so what's coming at me is a 6/6 wolf, or is it
2 6/6s.
Clackbridge is
A 5/5.
everybody's favorite new black card. It's
Death
ridiculous.
touch and a 7/7.
They're all trample.
they're all trample?
Yeah.
All right. So 2 6/6s that trample.
Mm-hmm.
I will kill
Yeah, they all
1 6/6 with my 7/7.
Okay.
Do you have anything that's not a wolf besides the Master of the Hunt?
Yeah, the giant.
What giant?
I'll,
The
The
one
troll
that
that's
tapped
tapped?
the troll, yeah, sorry.
I'll pay 1.
Let me Rankle. Rankle.
I didn't get any of my card draw stuff. Like,
Nice.
to give to
it happens.
block the other.
Hey, but I
6/6
survived long enough on that.
and make my wolf indestructible. Give it a +1/+1 counter and tap it.
Okay.
And do I have to sack a food to do that? Yep. I got
Which
food.
which wolf is that?
That is the wicked wolf.
It's nice.
Spiky wolf.
Spiky wolf.
Speaking of which, while I'm waiting
so
for
that's
y'all
2
to figure
6/6
that
is
out,
gone.
Yep.
I can modify
one
my
gone.
wolf deck.
The one you just blocked.
No, it does. It lives.
Okay, so it's top. And
So
then
I guess
there's
I
the
take in
5/5
there and it's
death touch,
trample,
and
so
there's the 7/7.
So I take 2 from blocking that because it's trample, and then there's a 5/5 death touch and a 7/7, another 7/7. No,
Just the 1/7/7.
Just
There
one?
were 2 6/6 wolves. You killed
okay,
one.
I killed one.
I tapped the other one.
There's a 7/7.
That's the 7/7, and this one is a 5/5 death touch. So I
Let's see your awful choices that you don't really have.
Yeah.
And they're all tramply, so...
This is also a death touch.
I'm just gonna, I'll just take it and die. But I'm gonna deal 3 to you.
You go. Direct.
Yep.
Alright. And... Are you gonna kill my nightmare?
You should.
Me?
Yeah. Don't...
Well, shit.
Oh, wait.
It's all over when the goats are dead.
It's all over when the goats are dead. Alright.
Before the end of my turn, I'll do once upon a time.
Okay.
Might have to put a splash of black in so I can have
A creature or land, right?
him.
Alright.
Only creature I have.
Gotcha. I think that's game.
Okay.
Done? Untap, upkeep, draw.
Yeah, so we've got a great henge.
Flash right on the nightmare. And I swing with everything.
You can go back.
Instant? Okay. Dead. I think you got it.
Give me my card back.
Oh, sorry.
You threw the wrong one.
Yep, you got it. That's game.
Whee! Yep.
Wee. Yep.
Me.
Val.
Thanks for bearing with me on a new deck, friends. Clearly I did not play this.
Yep.
It's all good.
And I was holding
That
the
was
Blackbridge.
difficult. I
If
guess.
if you didn't have that in your
Flash.
hand, you were dead. Yep.
Well, I could have either flashed this or bacon pie, and it was.
Well,
bacon
no,
to pie
because you were
sold
gonna die to the
flyer.
flyer, right?
Well, I had bacon to a pie during my last
Right.
turn, so I was just waiting for you to swing it with it.
Anger puppies.
Anger puppies. Anger puppies.
So there you go. I will never play that deck again unless I'm bored in the car somewhere. I mean, it works well with 4 players. 'cause
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Bog Brew.
Yeah, it really
I didn't even
does.
get a single Bog Brew Witch, though.
You got one though, I thought.
Nope.
No. Just newts.
Which
Lots
one?
of
Just the
newts.
newts.
Did you just pull her up to show her?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
No,
right.
did you? Because we saw
Nope.
one of her. Or was that the other one?
Yeah, no.
No, yeah, you pulled
No,
her
I
up.
didn't.
You pulled her up, though.
I
think
pulled her
just
up, yeah.
To talk about her.
Yep. So she lets me search for Festering Newt.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. So, Commander, yes.
Fuck yeah.
All right. So I've got a new one.
Is that the 7 dwarves?
Yes.
Awesome.
So, dwarves and cars.
Oh no.
Dwarves and
Oh,
cars.
this is the one where.
So this is one that has 7 dwarves in it.
Maybe.
It does have 7 dwarves in it.
Of course it has seven dwarves in it.
Cards from among them. Dwarf and vehicle in your hand. Wow. Nice.
So,
I'll be right back.
I don't know. I like Festering Nudes too, but you know. All right.
What are you playing about?
I have to see what I brought.
And now my toes are freezing
You gonna
since I
play
took
the
my hat
which
off.
No, I am still. Very
All right.
warm.
Well, that's okay.
Which ones are people's playing?
Val, what are you gonna do?
What did I? Festering nudes. Gross. Gross.
Anyone else know what they're playing?
Hytonia?
You gonna do Hytonia?
I thought I brought Lazolda and I didn't.
All right. So Val's standard mono black. Don't have to think much. Very much like
Basically,
yeah.
yeah.
I can play Chainer
I
or
meant
up
to
next list
actually
my
bring the other
brain
one.
shut off. All right, and you're gonna play Neheb the Eternal.
I
Alright, NPC will be playing
Because if
Neb.
it doesn't work well, then I get to go home. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all a little under the weather, so I think this is probably the last game tonight.
Well, my elf deck will have no chance, but it's fine.
No, like, it's Elf Ball. Your deck, I predict your deck will
against
win.
Hythonia, it's not really that.
I mean, literally, you're gonna shut off. Your commander shuts off my deck.
Yeah, that's kind of why I have to play it.
Well, no, I mean, I'm not gonna get to play. Every time I play a vehicle, you're gonna kill it with your commander.
Good.
So, like, I might not want to. Like, you're literally playing a deck that shuts off my commander.
I can pick something else.
What do you, the elf one?
Yeah.
I can pick something else.
I mean, well, yeah, her commander kills artifacts and enchantments. Right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, play it. What the hell?
I can play.
I'll just have to kill your commander whenever I
can
see
play
it.
Saskia.
It's your
see that
call.
one in a
No,
while.
don't. You know what? It's more thematic. Play your elf deck.
Alright.
Elves, dwarves, minotaurs, and gorgons. We're very
it's
fantasy
not-
tonight.
It's not.
What's yours?
It's well, yeah, but your commander's a minotaur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Fredes Lanois Fury. I love that she has an eye patch.
Yeah.
How many elves do you see with eye patches?
Not many, because they try to be pretty.
Change of season coven group.
Yeah.
All right. Who died first?
You'll have
February?
to-
NPC.
NPC.
But
All
I'm
right.
not.
Would you do me a
Ready.
favor and shuffle my deck for me?
Sure.
I will BRB.
I mean, that wolf deck is really good, but it's also like that does take a lot of work. You
Such
need to
a
be
very much
your awakest you've ever been in your life.
I have not been very weak.
Well,
this week.
I mean, and also that deck is super complicated.
I
Yeah.
love it.
And as soon as I see
So
Bayou's
good.
drop,
I
I'm
love
like, alrighty
complicated.
then.
Right.
Yeah.
BRB friends.
I love complicated.
Yeah.
Alright. I have no idea if this deck is going to work. I put it together. I did a couple like little goldfishy things, like trying to see if it was interesting or not. Seemed to be.
Oh, with the
Paula?
dwarf deck. Yeah.
Didn't we say Seismic Assault was not as good as we had hoped? Discard a land card.
Deals 2 damage in each.
Alright, so while we wait for everyone else to get ready, how's everybody doing?
you just have to do multiple lands.
I mean, I've got.
And before we hit midnight, I shall walk through and thank all of our backers in Patreon.
Hello, Patreon.
Patrons.
A
Let me click and
relationship
make sure.
manager.
Thank you. You're better at this than I am.
I've been taking.
You have. So thanks, Banshee. I don't know if you're still around, but thank you very much. And Clover. We should have her back at some point soon.
Yeah, you should.
Jordan, obviously, thank you, Jordan. And Rochelle Herrick. And Secret Weapon. So thank you, all of you guys. You're our Patreon backers. And we do have a
Yay.
Patreon. It's Coven MTG. Imagine that.
We're gonna be stacking up on cool things to give away, so
Yes.
think about us.
Yes.
Well, and we're gonna start that likely at IllixCon, which happens.
And
with-
IllixCon is an art convention in Reading, Pennsylvania. We will be streaming live with some of our favorite Magic artists.
Oh yeah,
And it'll be a lot of fun.
yeah.
And
Donato's gonna be there.
lots of people are
Matt
gonna be
Stewart's
there,
gonna
yeah.
be there.
And there'll be. I'll try to cut together
Uh,
some video afterwards, so we'll record everything and we'll cut some fun interviews together after the fact, like with all of our favorite Magic artists.
So I think on the last stream I was like, "Oh, Jeremy Wilson is gonna be there," and you were like, "Who is that?"
No, I know.
It's yeah, you know him, right?
Yeah.
Okay, last
And
week
was it
you
Jeremy?
were
I
like,
didn't know. I'm sure I know.
you were like
'cause I know,
the
I know
Empress
Jeremy.
shield breaker, I
Yeah.
think. Guy,
mean,
and
like,
you were like,
actually
I don't know
know-
who that is, but it's the guy who like described like
Yeah.
pouring the water on himself to make.
No, we
that
sat and
one
chatted
card.
with him at
Yeah, but you didn't
Artisticon.
remember him.
I
last week.
know, because I'm an idiot.
I was like,
It's almost like I have ADD or something.
yeah. You should bring up the Empress Shieldbreaker art.
Sure.
His art version of that. It's really-
Embreth Shieldbreaker.
Embreth
Is it the story?
Shieldbreaker. Yeah, it's the adventure. It has an adventure on it.
No, how to spell Embreth?
I thought that was right. So it's the other version.
EMBERETH.
Yeah, but it's not this art. It's the other art.
Gotcha. The
Yeah, the rarer art.
that one.
That.
Oh, that's purdy.
Isn't that cool?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very like Persian inspired-ish.
Here, while we're waiting, I'll bring out.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. At least I'll bring out all the. Let's see, all the extra cards.
My
I have.
nose is so red from blowing my nose.
Yeah. You should, here, zoom in on my playmat.
I am sneezy, right?
Zoom in on my playmat.
I will zoom
Alright.
in on your playmat.
So I got a Reaper of Night.
Nice.
These are all like the
cool stories.
The cool story frames.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, I love that
the
one.
Order
I need
of
to get a
Midnight.
print of that.
Yeah,
That's
it's
beautiful.
so pretty. The Falmir Knight.
There you go.
I
Let's do
don't like
this.
that art at
Yeah.
all.
Really? We were just talking about how much we like that.
I got two of them.
What don't you like about it?
I don't like white space.
Oh, interesting.
Just ingrained in me as
The Two
art school kid
Veil
not to do
Tree
that.
Folk.
Huh. I mean, you can do it if you know what you're doing and you intentionally do
I
it.
just don't like it.
Yeah.
I got the Flaxen Intruder.
I love that Omar Ryan stuff. God, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love the Beanstalk Giant.
I mean, Omar
so
Ryan
pretty.
needs to do like just
The whole
another.
Hey, our friend Alan Williams, who we met at Dragon
Yup.
Con's Queen of Ice.
Cool.
Hypnotic Sprite.
I got a foil one of that. Looks really cool in foil.
The card that I have the sketch for, Animating
Woo!
Fairy by Chris Seaman. Fave Wishes.
Nice.
Also very beautiful. The Oakham Ranger.
That's awesome.
Oh my God, Bunny's at Target in the costume section right
Fuck
now.
yeah, that's where I was
Silverleaf
earlier today.
Squire.
That's hilarious.
And I love this Shepherd of the Flock. It's like a little Garrick, kind
Aw.
of, almost like carrying a sheep.
Bless you.
So my favorite of those is the Hansel and Gretel one.
I'm sorry, what was
Don't
that?
The
die.
Hansel and
Sorry.
Gretel one. The art borders. That's my favorite.
Oh, what is it? Curious Pear?
Something
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh, I have that.
I keep forgetting that
Hold
you
on,
have
I
green
have
in your
those.
hair.
I have those.
I was
have
gonna dye it yesterday and I'm
I
just
have a foil one too.
do it this weekend maybe.
Where did I?
Alrighty. I should probably should.
Oh, I have them in this. Whatever I did with the deck.
Because you got one of those, right?
Yeah, I got two of them actually.
Yeah, neat.
It's in the deck I just played, but I didn't draw them.
You know what? While we're doing that other view we set up last week, I should probably,
No, wait,
Yeah, that
this
doesn't
is
really
the
work.
right one.
No.
Ooh, I like this one.
Is it on camera?
I got a foil. I got a foil Rimrock Knight.
Nice.
Foil. So great. That's in my 7-dwarf deck.
Oh, that goes there. Oh, there we go.
You have all the goth blankets and I have all the Harry Potter blankets now.
I have all the skull blankets.
I have like
There we go.
4 Harry Potter blankets, I think.
I guess I can move that up a little bit now.
Harry Potter sheets.
Nice.
I feel like kid sheets though.
Alright, where are they?
Alright. Let's see. 1, 2,
I didn't
3,
pull any
4,
of my gingerbread cabins in the
7.
whole game. I have
Did
like
you put-
4 of them in here.
You know what I like? The Ginger Brute. I love that card. That card was
That
a
card,
beast. It was
that card murdered me.
yeah,
in
it
one
was
of
a
the
fucking
draft
beast
games.
at pre-release.
Like it
Aw.
murdered me because it just
so
it,
cute.
it, it got like one person put like 3 equipments on it.
Yeah, and it just kills
and
you.
then made me not be able to block it and murdered the shit out
Yep.
of me. Here it is.
Ginger Brute.
Here it is.
It's a food golem. Oh my god.
Yes.
Yeah.
Its
hold that
card
up.
type
Yeah.
is food golem.
Hold it up. Hold it up.
What are we looking at?
One of my favorite new arts.
Oh, here, let me give you a bigger view.
Curious pair.
Ah, wrong one.
You want to just pull it up on the?
Yeah.
Well, no, show us.
The alternative.
Curious
art.
pair.
Oh, the Curious Pair alternate art? Yeah, I'll look at
Yeah,
it.
it's foiled too.
Sure.
It
I
looks
still love the
amazing
Ginger
in
Brute.
foil.
Ginger Brute.
Yeah, I want to make like a really awful deck around that somehow.
Alright, and here's the alternate art. Oh, that's sexy.
Yeah.
I want it. Have I mentioned
Just
I'm
you
obsessed with
Hernandez?
fairy tales?
Well, I love the witch's hand holding out the pie.
Yeah, you need
That's
to get
like-
a box of this.
I'm going to.
Yeah, it's fun.
Which is why I was like, fuck it, whatever, I'll proxy attack.
Yeah.
But I
Yep.
really want to
For
get prints and shit at
Well, like,
ElixCon.
yeah,
Like,
hopefully
I
they'll have
want
some.
art.
Yeah.
So, Bunny, when you go to check out at Target, they often have repacks at the front that are in plastic boxes.
I wish I got
For like
to foil
30
that.
bucks.
Yeah, you should
Oh,
see if there's
yeah.
anything interesting.
Thank you.
Gorgeous.
Yeah,
I like
it's
it.
also
Fine.
very
Because I like to
Okay.
have red
Goodbye.
hair and birds.
Alright.
Oh, right. What the hell am I trying to do
I
here?
have no idea. You just have your deck all spread out in front of you.
You're taking
well,
something out
I
to put
was
that in.
trying to. No, I couldn't figure out what to.
I
Because
don't
I didn't
have a
read
single
it. Says
land
you
in my
only get
opening
to
hand.
cast one more spell, and that's not really gonna fly. So.
Let's see if I can play this.
God help me, I'm going to discard a Aradara Express. And an Aether Shield Artificer, and see if I can get a land or two. And just a white and a red land. I'll take that. And
This hand's a little iffy, but I think it'll be fine.
oh, there's one of the 7 dwarves. I'm glad I did this.
Check your phone. I need to cut my pegs.
Damn. All right, there's something wrong. I got 1 land in all of this so far.
Shuffle your deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll play that. Alrighty. Okay. With me. Okay. I am ready whenever folks are. I will set my life to 40, because, 39, I'd rather not start a life down.
Huh. Okay, let's see.
And NPCs first?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Are you out of tissues?
No, do you need some?
Yeah.
Huh. Swear to goodness.
Stream.
I'm gonna go take care of that off stream.
Bye, Fran.
Does anybody need anything from the kitchen?
I didn't bring any snacks because we didn't do dinner.
Did I
True. Yeah.
bring snacks? I may have forgotten. Oh, the cute little Chandra.
It's not even that I want anything. It's just I didn't bring anything.
Okay, let's see if I've got a hand. 1, 2, 3.
It was weird not having
4,
people here like at 7.
5.
It was
6.
nice and relaxing to have like 2 extra hours to just
Yeah.
fucking sit down after having to do
And
Target
I
and the
played
pet store
this.
and buying a snake.
You bought a snake?
I bought a snake. I bought a cute little danger noodle.
Bunny, I don't know what I do with my phone.
Baby
so.
danger noodle.
Sure.
I think it's over there
can
somewhere.
Play this, I think.
Oh, actually, if you sent me a fun picture from Target, then
That's why I was saying to look.
Okay, I'm starting. Are people ready?
yes.
Okay. Drawing.
Yep, I'm ready.
Oh, cool.
I feel like that's
I am playing a
Me too.
mountain. I'm tapping a mountain, and I'm playing a Flameblade Adept.
Can I hold it up on the stream? Can I hold it? Please let me hold it up on the stream. I'm gonna hold it up on the stream.
What?
I'm
That is
waiting.
adorable.
I'm waiting.
And we're
Waiting
out.
for consent.
I'm waiting for consent before I hold this up on the stream. All right. Well, here I'll
You're
take my
gonna
turn
have
while I
to-
wait.
Yeah, show me when I get back because I need that. Oh, but it's gonna be my turn in a minute. Oh, wait.
Deprived of Coven.
All right.
Because he didn't come over for dinner.
Bunny says no, so don't.
Okay, then I shan't.
Respect.
Hey, of course. I play Rugged Prairie past turn.
This is my danger noodle. She's very small.
Wow.
Alrighty.
You see her?
Aw, very cute.
Very small. She's
Small
spicy.
danger noodle.
Okay.
She tried to bite
It's
you.
Val's turn.
You bought a snake and it tried to bite your boy.
Yes. Basically.
What kind
There's
of
a
danger noodle
snake
is it?
handling joke in there. She's a king snake?
She's a king snake.
Are you done?
I am.
So how many
Okay.
snakes do you have in the house now?
2.
Two.
We knew
Bah.
the snake we'd move with was on its last leg. When
So
we
here
moved
we're
in,
gonna.
so
I will
Just 2.
show the rest of Coven, but I can't show.
Oh.
Aw, adorable.
I love it.
You're adorable.
I feel you on the please no, but show Kevin. That's my default.
Show all of my friends, but not people who will judge me.
You know what? I am going to.
Albino striped California king snake.
Nice.
You couldn't even block with that
My first
Llanowar elf
danger
if you
noodle.
wanted to.
Go after the Llanowar. Don't let the elf have more.
It can't block. She
Oh, it has-
even if she
That's
wanted
cool.
to, she
Got
couldn't
it.
block it. It has menace.
Menace.
Got it.
So
His minutes I have to block it too.
Is it menace
Yes.
haste?
Yeah.
no, but I played it last
got it,
turn.
got it.
So, you know what? I don't normally roll, but it's between you two.
What did you play? What is that thing?
Flameblade Adept. Okay, you're 1 through 3, you're 4 through 6.
No, this thing.
Jayberry, it's you. 1 damage.
It's a jackal
I
warrior.
should probably get.
I feel like I should still be wearing the hat going.
And
I
I'll
know,
be
right?
right.
I like that a lot.
Alright.
It's the use of light.
Alright,
Sexy.
untap. Upkeep. Draw. Well, 3 mana that I can make and nothing to play.
That's awful. Done?
Yeah, so it goes. Go.
I'll play a plane.
Actually, no, I'll crack her back for 1 just because I can.
Right?
Yeah, do it.
Crack back.
Jesus, what can I do?
Yay, casual games.
I will tap
Pretty
2
much, yeah.
for a smuggler's copter.
Stop.
Copter.
Cop.
Copped?
We don't have a noise.
It is a 3/3 flying artifact, crew 1, and when it attacks, I can draw a card to discard a card. And here, I'll bring it up. I think they actually banned it in Standard for a while.
Look at my cool little 1/1 elf token from
That's
Jason
cool.
Ingle.
What's that?
Foil.
Let me take a look.
It's got herbs on it.
Rulings.
Herbs.
Wow, lots of rulings.
Yes. Many.
Oh, legalities. Let's see. Oh, I'm just gonna open it in Gatherer. I'm just curious.
I beat you in the head for 1.
And it is...
Unless I guess you could play something to stop it.
I don't see the
I'll take
legality. Sets and legality.
I already moved your life total.
It is.
Oh,
Oh, it's legal and
smugglers.
everything. There we go. Yeah.
Cool.
I thought it wasn't.
Now we just checked. It was... they banned it
They
in
changed
Standard.
It? Oh, okay.
It's not in Standard anymore, so...
Doesn't matter. Then.
Is it me?
Yes. It's
No.
you. Wait.
It's me, right?
Are you done?
It doesn't have haste, does it?
Oh, I thought we were already past and over there.
No.
You're wrong.
No.
Yeah, you didn't pass turn.
Oh, yeah. What am I gonna do with no mana? Sorry,
I don't
past
know.
turn. Yes.
I wanted to shout out to Gawky
Yay for your playmat.
Yeah.
on Instagram. There's a whole little story about Bitterbug, which is the name of this character.
Aw.
I got this at Gen Con. It's so pretty.
Yay.
Okay.
And she was super nice, and her artwork was awesome.
Yay.
I wish she had like a little something. I'll have to get her to sign it next time I see her. Alright.
I don't know. I'm just playing with the zombie unicorn mat.
Yeah, I think it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
With 2 mouths.
Yeah.
Rawr.
Pretty terrifying.
And a whoop. There's an a whoop.
What else?
What should do?
I don't believe I can do anything else. That's it. I chose a weird hand.
So, untap. Okay. Draw. I'm going to play a button.
Stupid fucking hands.
Yay.
I am going to... what am I going to do? I'm going to tap 3
Bunny, when is your birthday?
to play the Iron Crag Pyromancer.
Ooh, that's a new one.
Yes.
Whenever you
Let's
draw
bring
your
it up.
second card each turn, it deals 3 damage to any target.
Yes.
Nice.
Has,
What is
or
it?
do you
Spell
want
it
me to
iron
say?
what?
It's IREN.
Just to fuck with you.
There we go. Yeah. And her.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's a gorgeous card.
She's a wizard.
Bunny, when is your birthday?
Yes.
Wizard.
Wizard.
Let's see.
She's a 0/4 wall. No, she's on the wall.
I like that, and I like that she's
Oh,
tiny.
she actually will be nice in Inala.
I'm going to attack you.
Okay, I'll take 1.
Yeah. I'm passing around the
Tuesday.
Passing.
Happy early birthday.
Indeed.
Draw. Ooh. Oh man. Should I play this?
Definitely.
It's gonna totally fuck one person over.
Please no.
Probably me. I'm okay. I am used to being fucked over.
You like being arch enemy.
I will wait to play that. Because it'll just make someone very sad.
What is it? If it's a kill all artifacts, yes, it will make me very sad.
I don't know.
No, it's not.
Bunny
It's-
says, fuck
it only
shit
has
up.
1 target in this
Oh.
game. I'm not gonna play it yet.
Fuck shit up, do it.
Immaculate Magistrate.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
nice.
everywhere.
Pass turn.
Let me bring that up.
Oh, jeez.
I don't see what
Shit's
the
gonna
problem
get
is.
real.
Yeah. Put a +1/+1
Because your
on every elf.
Llanowar
I don't
elf
know what
becomes...
the problem is.
Right.
Oh,
No, it's not
never
every
know.
elf. It's target creature.
Target creature for each elf
So
I
you
control.
pick
Rogue's
one.
Passage.
Yeah.
That's a little terrible. Though.
Rogue's Passage?
Yep.
Guess it's a good thing I have at least
I will
one land
do it
destruction.
eventually.
1, 2, 3. I'm tapping this to make 2 red, and that for white. I'm playing a Mizium tank.
What does that do?
It's weird. It's a vehicle that turns into a vehicle without crewing it every now and again.
It's the one you were talking about the other day, yeah.
That thing. So it's a 3/2 vehicle, and whenever I cast a non-creature spell, it becomes...
Oh no.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I have to cast the non-creature spell, or non-creature, yeah.
No, oh no to the,
Alright, pass turn.
whatever is happening over here.
Yes. Awaits its coming with bated breath.
Oh jeez.
Baited. My things are baited.
I can't
My
do
breaths
anything,
are baited.
So I'll hang out. I chose a weird starting hand.
Okay, so untap.
Gotta use scissors today, and holding that to drink
I
is
think I
killing me.
forgot to draw.
How many cards do you have in hand?
How many cards do you have in your hand?
7.
1, 2,
I have not
3,
missed
4,
one ever.
5, 6, 7. No, we're right.
I have 5.
Yep,
yeah.
we're good.
Okay.
As opposed to baited.
4.
I need a little token, like this big, that just says, you drew your card, so I can put it
Yeah.
on top of my deck every fucking time. And also one that says, you missed your fucking trigger. Like, I should just fucking make them.
Yeah.
Or, you know, do this. Just put something on top of your deck like that.
But if we make them,
I'm hitting
and they're
you
for the
for
coven,
two.
we can sell
Or
them.
1. Hitting
Then
you for
make
1.
them.
Oh.
Okay. I want to
Then
come up
make
with
it,
some,
dear Liza.
I hate it. I
I'm
wanna
just
come up
going to
with some
keep
coven
spreading
tokens.
love.
Just hit me twice.
Pass turn.
She hit
Hey,
me
but
last
I
turn.
hit, yeah, like,
And she's spreading it around, I get
Yeah.
it.
There's a third person in this game.
Yeah, really? What the hell?
No.
What the hell?
I'm just gonna complain.
Would you like some cheese with that wine?
I know what Hyconia does. Not to
I know.
say Hyconia is
Right,
not
she's-
bad,
she's not disappointed.
but
She's been tweaked a tiny bit, but not since last time.
Alright, well, see how long I get to keep this one.
oh boys.
Nissa, who shakes the world.
I don't even know what that
does. When I tap a force for mana, I have an additional one.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're 5 mon already.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
counting the Llanowar.
Counting the Llanowar. Alright, let's see, I control 2 elves. I'm gonna tap this, and I'm gonna put 2 counters on it. And then I'm going to, I guess I put
Counter on
counters
the
on a
land.
land, untap it,
Why counters on the land?
because that's what
That's
the plus.
what
That's what the plus does.
Pull it up.
That's the plus of Nissa.
To one
So it
target.
gets 3.
Non-creature. Oh, right.
Vigilance and haste. That's the
Right.
low
Oh,
land.
is there like a turning lands into creatures? something?
I mean, mainly it's mostly here for the ramp.
Gotcha.
To be honest.
Yeah, well, it's good ramp.
I want to create.
So let me
That's
grab
one of my other decks that I
Die.
want to create.
So it's at. So Nissa's at 6.
Yup.
Let me get some small, maybe a little smaller.
And when does your thing do damage? And it does.
Second
It only does it
card.
to creatures, huh?
So
Nope,
Any
any
target.
target.
I can take 3 off Nissa.
'Cause- but I have to get my second card, which I haven't really gotten to the point. Like, I haven't gotten any of my cycling stuff, which gives me a card when I do that.
And what do you have over there, DM?
Nothing.
creature-wise?
Just I have 2 vehicles.
vehicles?
Yep.
Yeah.
Alright,
Just-
I'll hit you for
just
3
2
with my
vehicles.
vigilant hasty land.
Yep.
Do you get to untap it? When you turn it into a creature?
Yeah, when it turns into a creature, I untap it.
Oh, okay.
And then I put 3 counters on it. And then it has Vigilance and Haste and still land.
Ancient Den.
There we go.
Alright.
That's past turn, right?
Yep, yeah.
Aeronaut Admiral vehicles I control have flying.
Okay.
That's awful.
It's a 3/1. It's gonna die,
Wait.
but they're gonna kill Nissa.
The smuggler's copter could have blocked, right?
I didn't have anything to turn it into a thing.
I thought it
the
was a
Vigilance.
thing. I
No,
thought
this
you
is an
didn't
art
need to
vehicle.
crew it.
These are both vehicles.
Hang on. No, this copter.
The copter and the tank are both vehicles.
Can I see?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, but can I see the copter?
Sure. AERONAUT.
Oh, it's a tiny crewing. That's why I'm confused. Oh no, I'm thinking of the other one that doesn't need to crew.
So there we go. I have my Aeronaut Admiral.
There you go. So confused. He's
And
so cool.
just because you were a shit to me.
That never happens in Magic.
Yeah, right?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No one's ever a shit. Not
I'm gonna,
you. Never
I'm gonna
you.
poke Nissa for 4. Flying.
Why was that? When was I shit to you?
You swung at me for 3 with your Vigilant Land.
Vigilant Man.
Yeah, I'm
Does
gonna
that take-
I'm gonna poke Nissa for 3 flying. 4 flying,
Right.
sorry. Oh wait. It doesn't get the +1, so actually I'm gonna
Hang on.
poke her with the smuggler's copter.
Alright, so how big was it?
3.
3.
It's still 3. But
So Nissa's only a 3 and
Yeah.
you
so
Okay.
oh. Fine. Done.
Alright.
I'm not gonna discard a card and draw a card. Actually, I will. I'll draw to discard. Oh, God.
And then you get something you want, and you're like, what do I do?
No, I'm gonna discard something else.
Imperial Seal.
Restoration Specialist. Damn it.
What'd you
Sack
play?
it to return an artifact
Imperial
card.
Seal. It's a go get a whatevs. Motherfucker Ulamog's 3rd down. And Vencer's Journal. This is bad. And Masker Worm. Fuck.
And it goes on top, right? Yeah. And you lose 2 life.
Yeah.
I got your life.
Oh,
You can do anything else?
I don't know, actually. Let's say no for right now.
well.
So I'm done.
Because it doesn't come to your hand, it goes to the top. So
Oh,
usually do it last
okay.
in your turn.
Untap.
Better than hitting with the Vigilance. Yes, I'm happy people aren't hitting me with Vigilance.
Can we get someone to draw that card?
It's if you can do it.
Interesting.
Oh no! Ooh, we should no. You know what we should do?
Ooh, what?
We should have
I
someone.
appreciate how excited you just got.
We should have someone draw the card for
Oh,
us
no.
because it's going to be the 3 of us against you.
What?
That's the Vigilance card.
Great.
We're all going to be like, you're going to be in a corner cowering, and we're all going to be like carrying spears, like poking you.
Okay then. Or the one that Donato drew of me and Cave Girl where she's beheaded me.
Kind of like that, yeah. Except it's going to be us and you.
Playing a
Great.
sun-scorched desert, and I'm doing 1 point of damage to you, DM.
Why don't you do it to the Planeswalker?
Well, it says target player.
Because why not?
Calm down.
Calm your tits. Calm your tits.
And
Calm your
then
tits.
I'm
Think about
going
once.
to top
It says player, not planeswalker.
5 and bring to heaven.
Nice.
Yay. Flicked 3.
And then I am going to poke Nissa for and it has menace,
Oh, menace,
so
right. Okay, it's a menace guy.
yeah.
Okay.
See?
We got. You were supposed to get rid of Nissa because
I
it doubles
can't.
her mana production.
I can't do it yet. Trust me.
you should.
If I could,
What's
I
that?
would.
Maybe you should
But
take
I
care of
can't.
it for us.
Really? Fuck all y'all.
Anyways,
Can I
pass
do
turn.
I can't do shit.
Pass turn.
Okay.
Well, yeah, but
Did you pull up the commanders, like
Yeah.
Neheb and
Uh-huh.
all that? Oh.
while you were still putting your deck together. And I'm gonna take a moment.
To not die.
Well, and to not, blow my nose at the street.
for me. I appreciate that.
Alright. Okay. Where do I want to go? Alright. We have doubling mana. Alright. Well, I'll go ahead and check up Nissa to 3. She's not gonna live much longer anyway. Oh wait, no, not do that yet. Sorry, do this in a better order. Okay. So,
I'm not hungry. I just didn't bring anything. That's fine.
6, 5, 5, and 6. Okay, so that makes 12.
My arms are small.
It's okay.
Although, does this actually count as a forest? I don't think it does.
Guess not. So 10. I guess not. DM.
Yeah.
The Lenore doesn't count for Nissa,
As a
right?
forest, because it's not.
Yep. Okay. So I got 10 and 11. Okay.
No, it specifically says forest.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wasn't sure. I see a tree symbol and I'm like, forest. So that's 10. I'm gonna bring in my commander. I have 5 more floating. Wait, do I need that much? 5. 5 and 6.
Bonnie, I have a question for you. Did you actually go to Target with something in mind, or are you just randomly wandering around Target because you have nothing else
Look,
to do?
I went in for cat food and I came out with all kinds of shit. I did go in looking for the red cake though.
Ah. Ooh.
8, 5. Alright, well, I'll just do this now. A life force.
What is that?
You're fucked.
Oh no.
We're all
You
fucked
need to
because of you.
destroy that.
It's not good.
Well, I mean, she knows you play mostly black.
Yeah.
That's what I was. So that was what I was contemplating not playing in my first, in the second turn, basically. All right.
I'm
Okay.
not like personally offended by it. Also, it's adorable.
It is.
It is adorable.
It's a
All
cute
right.
little thing in an egg.
All right. I'm gonna.
Chips and gelato because no one's monitoring you and you're a small child. Alrighty then. That's hilarious.
So I played a life force bunny, and that's the bad thing that I was holding back.
The bad
That
thing.
basically counters all of Val's deck.
If I have mana open.
And you, oh, guess what? Your land's tapped for 2 now.
Yeah. I still have 1 floating. Alright, I'm gonna tick down Freylease to destroy the thing that dealt me damage.
Okay, copper
last
dies.
turn. Yeah. I'm gonna tick
I'm
up
not like
Nissa.
terribly offended by this though.
Yeah, I should
I
have played
have
this deck against.
literally nothing out right now.
To let's see, untap and put 3 counters on a land.
Yup.
Let's see. Okay. And blah blah blah. It's hasty. And I will then. Let's see.
Oh, please send it my way. I'd love to kill that land for you.
I know.
I know, right?
Yeah. So whenever
Elf deck is doing
this
what elf
creature
deck
becomes
does.
Blocked.
Yep.
So, but does this afflict only happen when you attack with it?
What do you mean?
The
Yeah, if you block it,
It has
the
to
afflict
be
happens.
blocked.
Yeah,
It doesn't afflict when I block
Yeah.
with it.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
By the way, Chandra sleeves.
Everything's yeah.
Aw.
They're
pretty.
so cute.
Alright.
Oh, there's a little.
I'm gonna try
Little
to
chitties.
Yeah. But
Hooray,
see,
death.
she's burning something.
I don't have any blockers, so.
Yeah. All right. Well then,
That's amusing.
What?
Funny's comment.
4 and 3 coming at
You
you.
hit me for 7?
I'm hitting you for 7.
Alright. Asshole. I'm gonna kill your.
I know.
I'm gonna kill your
I know.
both planeswalkers.
I know.
Alright.
It's fine.
That's what planeswalkers are for.
Oh wait, this is vigilant. Go.
And you realize, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That whatever.
I'm supposed to. I have to be aggressive with this deck.
I
I'm trying
know.
to be more aggressive.
Right, but
Yeah, I'm not good at that.
you be aggressive against the person who's not gonna swing back and crack you back.
Well, you gotta kill your friends somehow.
Yes, you do. Alright.
Yes, I know there's gonna be crackback. I can't do anything about making all your shit flying. Since I can't do anything about that, I'm gonna hit you with what I have!
You got it. I'm gonna play Duretti Scrap Savant.
No.
Oh, God.
I like that.
And
Wanna see
hey,
you
guess
again? Pull it up.
sure.
His art's pretty sweet. He's like Goblin Pope.
He's the Goblin Pope. Really?
Have you seen the artwork? He's the Goblin
He is
Pope.
the well. There's different ones, but yeah. All right,
Look
he's
at
the
him.
Goblin
He's
Pope.
the Goblin Pope.
So he comes in with 3. I'm gonna let's see. I'm gonna tick him up to 5 to discard nothing and draw nothing. I played a non-creature spell that turns into a thing. 1's going at 3 is going at Freylaise. Sorry, 4 is going at Freylaise, and 3
Does
is
your guy fly?
They
It's
both
flying.
fly.
Yeah, see, all of his artifacts fly. So there's nothing I can do about that.
But I got no blockers now, but I had to do that because you're playing a deck that shuts my deck off.
Yeah.
So,
Both
Both die.
Nissa and Freylease are dead.
yeah.
That's
Can you do anything about the enchantment or no?
No. Well, not now.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to shut off the planeswalkers so that I could actually play my deck. Otherwise, I don't get to have anything in play.
That's not true.
It is completely true.
Okay.
I mean, Freylaise is just going to blow up my artifacts over and over again.
Yeah, but Nissa doesn't do that.
Yeah, but Nissa doubles your mana and lets you play Freylaise again.
More easily.
Right.
Yeah.
Pass turn. How big are those elves? Sorry, 6 damage worth of lands and
One's
a
a
4/4 elf.
1/1 and a 4/4.
Ooh, this is
And
not great.
2/3/3 lands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jayberry should rename the deck Shut the Fuck Off.
I can't play that.
Shut the fuck
I'm
up.
like fucked her mana. Right
Shut the fuck elf.
That's a mana. We're fine.
She has 2 mana to counter a black
I
spell.
do. What is it?
It's a 3/3 creature. And that's it, because I can't bestow it, and I don't have anything else I can play.
What?
It's a 3/3
It's
creature.
just a 3/3.
Well,
It's a
no.
bestow creature, but I can't do anything.
The
with
three, it's a 3/3 creature with a ability for free that's discard a creature card to give it +2/+2 till end of turn.
it. That's only if I bestow it.
No, it's a creature that does that has that ability too.
Yeah.
So the bestowed creature would have that ability, and when it falls off and becomes a creature, it has that ability.
I've never played it as a non-bestow, I don't think.
Ah, well there you go.
That's really funny.
I'm not gonna be a total dick and completely shut you out of the game early, so.
I started with mana.
I did.
You did.
Okay.
I did.
I'm guessing you're done.
Yeah, can't do anything else.
Okay. Untap.
So cards like that are why there's 2 $80 cards in my Chainer deck that
Oh, yeah, I
are
know.
literally
Narrow
Planeswalkers is one of the only ways for me to get rid of enchantments in Chainer.
Yeah.
It's the only way for me to kill an enchantment. Doop, 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 doop.
Options. Stuff. Things.
Yeah, we let you ramp way too early, and we just left you
Oh, and
alone.
we let us ramps? No.
Well,
Are
it's
you
gone now. It's
Fine.
Yeah, but I've taken
all right.
literally 12 damage.
All right. Fine.
Wait, is this actually a creature?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're both 3/3
It's
creatures.
a vigilant 3/3 creature that's still alive.
Like we could shut off all the ramp if we could. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this deck, like everything that's been played so far this game is just like screw you, screw
Amusing?
you, screw
It's
you.
amusing is what it is.
Do it. Just do
What
it.
do I do?
If it's the best thing for you to do,
Screw
you should do
you,
it.
taxpayer.
I'm gonna try not to complain.
Basically in a
but-
nutshell.
No, like let's let.
We were being mean to everybody earlier.
Aw.
Feel bad.
Hey, look,
Being
you know
mean
what?
to my
Amazing.
friends.
You got to kill your friends eventually.
I know.
Especially magic.
I mean, why don't I just see? Well.
You want me to leave you alone?
Perhaps.
If I leave you alone, you let me direct things. That's right.
Yes.
Oh, you're a silly woman. I'm
But-
playing white, so I'm one of the few things that can kill all the crazy ass elf enchantments.
Yep.
We must befriend you currently. Currently being
what does
the
Seretti
operative
do again? Can you pull him up?
Her?
word.
Her?
She's
And
an elf pilot.
Already.
Oh God, Doretti.
That one.
Oh, Doretti,
Yeah.
There's a
sorry.
problem with everything.
It's here to let me cycle artifacts in and out.
Not great.
Yeah,
But that
but the only thing in my
emblem-
graveyard is a fucking smuggler's
But that
copter.
emblem.
Right now.
One time
The
we
emblem
left,
would be
One
awful.
time we
Yeah,
left
the
that
emblem
alone
would
and
be a
it
terrible
was
thing.
bad.
One time we learned our lesson.
One
Yeah.
time we fucked up and left Doretti alone. I can't switch the view when you
Oh, I'm
have it on
sorry.
the other screen.
Okay, then I'm gonna do a thing.
You're gonna
because
do a
I wanna
thing.
do a thing.
Thing with the stuff.
Stuff with the thing. I'm
Already
going to
is a
do
huge problem.
Chandra's Triumph against Already.
3 damage.
Yeah. So.
It's 3 damage, target creature, planeswalker, opponent controls, deals 5 if that permanent. And,
I don't have a Chandra out, so.
Well, alright.
It's not the
Goes down
worst
to
thing
2.
in the world.
Yep.
See? I'm
There
a
you
nice
go.
person.
Alright, my Doretti is down to 2. But I had to leave it like that because I couldn't just fucking let both of those planeswalkers
Let's
live.
see.
2 planeswalkers out this early is kind of bad for us.
Yeah, it really is.
That's a
Any
thing.
planeswalkers out ever is bad.
Well, when one player has 2 green Nissas out, or a Nissa and a Freylays. Sorry. Sorry!
I'm just so innocent.
How
Yeah,
much does
you
your
becoming our
commander
Chandra at
cost
that point.
again?
5.
So it'll be
So
7
7.
next turn.
So
You
I
have
can
it
play
though.
it.
1, 2,
No.
3, 4, 5, 6. So,
So
if you play a
play
land,
land or draw land,
If,
you got it.
This is important for me to know.
This is important information to know.
Okay, I am going to attack with,
Neb.
yes.
At me?
Yeah, probably, because I need
Okay.
something to,
Okay.
You gotta get rid of the fucking craziness over there.
so, 4, 6.
4-6 swinging that way.
Yep.
You know what? And let me pull
I'll
up.
take 4.
Okay.
Which one is it? It's Neheb the.
The Eternal!
Let me get my Commander Death token out.
That art is sweet.
Yeah.
And so...
So at the beginning of your post combat main, add red to your pool for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn.
Oh god.
Yes.
So
So,
4. You have 4
So
in
you
your
get
pool.
4 red.
so I have a total of 7.
Yup.
Zombie Minotaur Warrior.
Yup.
Pretty cool.
That's. Yeah. So the problem is, if you block it,
I lose 3 life.
if you block it, she gets 3 mana.
Yeah.
If you don't block it, she gets 4 mana.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
What am I doing with my life?
Feels
Yep.
relatable content.
Because I
Every
could
time that song plays. you work.
do something.
I can never remember that one. It always sounds like it's something else
Yeah,
to me.
it's decoded feedback. Well, it sounds like decoded feedback sounds like 4 other bands.
No, it's Edward Lust.
Then what am I doing?
That's why it messes with me.
Oh, because it does sound
doesn't
like decoded
sound like
feedback.
them.
Fine.
It also sounds like
It's
So you're
the
tapping
keyboard player
6,
probably wrote this
Panic
song.
Lift and stuff. Like, I don't know.
Actually, do I even need to have 6?
That's 4. Okay, 4 in your
I
pool.
like decoded feedback a lot.
So,
Yeah.
I only needed to tap 1.
Okay.
Could have done this math differently, but I didn't.
Okay.
So, and I cast a spell this turn. This is important.
Yep.
Tyrant.
Tyrant of Valakut.
Yes. So I get to deal 3 damage to target creature or player.
Blow up a land.
I can't blow up a land.
What
Oh,
Yeah, you
what
can.
spell
I
did
can
you
blow
play
up a
this turn?
land.
What spell did you
The
play this
instant
turn?
that hit
Oh,
Yeah.
already.
Got it.
Actually, yes. Kill a land. Sorry.
3 damage to target creature or player. Okay. Do you want to pick which one, the tapped
Doesn't
one
matter.
or untapped one?
It doesn't matter. You're untapping like next turn, so
Okay.
pass turn.
Did you draw more than 1 card this turn?
No. That's the only problem I'm having right now.
It's weird to see a dragon with so many horns.
Yeah.
It's a horny dragon.
I want to show off my elemental token.
Oh, here, hold on.
It's so cute.
Oh, it's a cute
roasting a pig.
It's an elemental pig roast.
Yes.
Nom nom.
All right, Jay Brary.
Put 2 counters on that, and I can't play anything else.
Done.
Yep.
All right. Yay! We shut you off after doing 12 damage to me for a turn.
Well, I can't act already now, so someone else is gonna have to deal with that.
Got it.
I'm gonna sack the Arid Mesa. Lose a life. And I will put into play, if I have a Battle Foundry thingy. I don't know if I put one in here, I'm sure I did.
What's a Belduril?
It's the red-white land that comes in and does 2 damage, unless I have it come in tapped. I don't know if I put one in here. Otherwise, I'll just go get a fucking mountain. Doo-doo. Sorry. Battlefield Forge. There it is, Sacred Foundry tapped. Oof. What's that?
My foot's asleep.
Alright. And then... what else shall I do?
Also, does anybody want to go to the gigantic local game store sometime this weekend? Maybe Sunday.
I'm gonna play an
can't
Heirloom
this
Blade.
weekend.
Something's going on Sunday.
And a...
That's for legendary? Or no, it's the one where creature type dies and then you
and I'm
can
gonna equip
start-
it to the Aeronaut Admiral. And I'm gonna...
What does the Heirloom Blade give it?
+3/+1, so it's a 6/2 flyer.
Is it indestructible?
No, I mean you can kill it. It's nothing, but when the thingy dies, I can reveal cards until I hit a dwarf.
Yeah.
How much mana did that blade cost?
3
And to equip?
and 1.
1? Wow.
Yeah.
What equip
You have to
was
play it in a
this?
tribal deck.
Yeah.
That's why it's not. And then I will discard no cards to draw no cards and take already up to 4 and pass turn. I will discard no
You're
cards.
not gonna attack with a flyer?
We'll get this ridiculousness. I'm gonna. There's a dragon over there and an
There's
Aheb.
a dragon over there.
It's a dragon and an Aheb. I think I'll
Yeah.
sit tight for a little bit.
Jesus, I need something. I don't want to tutor for a fucking land.
Pardon me.
Don't worry. I'm going to leave you alone next turn.
Okay.
I'm sharing the love. It will be spread out.
I really can't play pretty much anything.
Sit tight as a
other
blocker,
than
I mean.
a fucking increasing ambition.
Then play it.
I don't want to fucking waste it on like just going to get
Go get a Soul Ring.
Man. True.
I mean that. You know what I mean? That puts you up to 7, and you can play it without fear of it being countered.
True.
I mean, I could counter the increasing ambition.
You could counter me going to look for a soul ring, yeah.
Well, yeah,
If I want to be that person, which I probably don't.
Jeez.
I mean, we're all playing. Like, both of you two are kind of, and that's okay. But your decks are
I mean, that's what I'm doing.
very
now.
aggressive,
Mine?
and it's designed to be. It's an Aheb deck. It's supposed to be super aggressive.
Yeah, you're supposed to
And
attack with it.
Elf Ball should, yeah. If we didn't do something, Elf Ball would have gone
I mean,
off by
I
now.
had to.
Elf Ball would have gone off by now if I hadn't killed that Freyles.
Oh my god, this would have sucked. There's
Not
so
Freyles,
many.
Nissa.
Nissa.
It would have doubled all your mana. Yeah, Elf Ball would have killed us all by now, or been poised
I
to kill
misplayed
us.
something. I could have probably had this out for another turn. 'Cause I
Really?
fucked up, yeah.
Yeah, this would have been terrible. There's like no mana for this one.
Just put one on top.
Well,
You're already
she's
yours.
searching
Okay.
for a
Two
soul
down for a
ring
soul
and
ring.
gonna shuffle. And
Gotcha.
then
Or just get an orb board maybe here. Nah, yeah.
I don't have a Cabal in here yet.
Oh, gotcha.
Look at the stronghold. There it is.
There you go.
Can't even play it though.
Yeah. Oh well.
What if I?
There, I got it. I'll shuffle for you.
That'd be awesome. My hands
Pass turn.
don't feel great.
Are you done?
Yes.
I'm hit.
And let's take a look at your board state, because you got a lot of monsters going on over there.
Oh, oh my.
Oh, sorry. Got a Minotaur zombie warrior, a dragon, a jackal warrior, and a wizard.
Yeah.
Alrighty then.
What do I want to do?
What was that?
I'm not getting any of my.
That was very cute.
So the problem is I'm not getting any of my card draw.
Oh man.
I'm
That
going
sucks.
into. It's
Yeah, if I
probably
could have
good
two
for
dragons,
everyone
fuck.
else though that I'm
Problem,
not getting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I can. I
it's
will
making
probably.
it a fair.
I will probably kill it just out of spite.
I'm not attacking you
Oh, okay.
for Neheb.
Fight magic never.
But I am sharing the love, and sorry, Val,
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming at you for 4 Neheb and 1/2 Menace. So you can't block the
Okay.
one. You can block Neheb.
And how much? Yeah, I'm like.
That would give me 5 mana.
Do you have a?
That's the one. That
Do you have a
I-
creature card to discard to kill Neheb?
No.
Ah.
Can I? Sure. Do I want to? No. What's the
Okay.
total? 4?
Yeah. Or it's 5.
4, 5 for the
yeah,
other one,
no,
yeah.
I'm just taking the
And
whole
then it's
fucking
4 commander damage.
Yeah.
Can I get a
D20.
something that looks like it can commander damage? Something.
And then
Spin down. There you go.
Thank you.
for my next trick. I'm
Now for my next
having-
track with your
You have 4 mana
I have 5, actually.
floating. Oh.
5 damage.
Uh,
It's all damage that was
life.
done. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Okay, and then 1, and then playing a Steel Hellkite.
Nice.
That was awful.
Hey, I am not afraid of another Freylace because I know what's going to happen when that comes into play.
Well, I can't play it, so that's
Pass turn.
fine.
I'm just saying, I am not afraid of a Freylace right now because I am not the death target.
I know. Hey, my goal is if I die early,
I get to go
can
home.
I'm
And when
on that
you're the
mindset
target-
now that I would like to go home, and it is 10 minutes away, and I get to go home to Jake.
Aw,
Most
you're so
admirers, I
I'm
draw
so
a
gross.
card.
You should see us. We're just gross all the fucking
cute.
time.
I do see you be gross all the
We're
time.
even worse
It's
at
very
home
cute.
now.
It is very cute.
Case in point.
Aww.
Huh?
We're just gross.
Oh, you're being mushy.
We're just gross. all
You
the
are
time.
mushy and gross. I'm very happy for you.
Nice.
Alright, what am I doing?
That's what happens
I'm
when you
taking
meet over a
this up.
table
My
of
God.
magic cards.
What are you doing?
Yeah, you should be untapping.
Life forever.
I've already started my turn.
Oh, okay.
I played things.
Yeah, she
Oh,
played
yeah.
Masked Admirer, drew a
I played
card.
Admired Admirers, I drew a card. I'm tapping that
Oh,
to
okay.
put a +1.
It is really nice to have a 10-minute drive.
Do you want to hang tight and maybe do it in response?
Reach 3. No.
Okay.
How was the Ravnica Inquisition game?
It's a lot of fun.
Ravnica Werewolf?
That's the one we were
basically?
playing with around the table. At the
Yeah,
last.
I didn't play that.
It is. It's not just random.
Have
Like
I-
there's a way
One
for you to
block.
win. You know, because werewolf is often
it's
just
like
random.
werewolf, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it in.
But there's voting in groups, like, and you're grouped by your guild.
And pass
Do you
turn.
get to choose your guild?
Well, you can if you want. Yep. Done.
Yep.
All right. Don't tap up. Keep draw. All right. Fuck it.
Fuck, it's a play style.
Fuck it is a playstyle. DePaula.
What did she do again?
She is a 3/3 legendary dwarf pilot. Other dwarves you can. Here, I'll bring her up.
Yeah, bring
Yeah.
her up again.
Other dwarves get +1,
+1, and vehicles get +1/+1.
Yep.
There we go.
There we go. Whoop. Come on.
Come on, you
Come
can
on.
do it.
I can do it.
So cool.
Yep. So she looks very happy to be a pilot.
Yep.
That'd be an easy cosplay.
And let's see.
Easier, definitely.
Huh. I'm gonna tick the ready up to 6 to discard a wind card Crag and draw a card. Cool.
Oh, he's up to 6.
Yeah, by the way, you need to be paying
I can't
attention
do-
to Duretti.
Oh.
Shit. Yeah. I can.
And then I will
I would have liked two different archetype finality instead of a
play
soul
a
ring.
veteran motorist. When it
What's
comes
that do?
veteran motorist, it is apparent. Imagine that. It is a dwarf pilot. 3/1, and when it comes into play, I scry 2. Oh man.
So I want to know what's happening with them right now.
God, I like both of these. Fuck it. Yeah. I'm gonna sit. Pass turn.
Vehicles are flying, right?
Yes.
And the one dwarf.
And the one dwarf.
Okay.
Good. It is a soul.
There you go.
Finally.
And you will note someone does not have 2 green mana.
It's not great that everything in my hand basically costs 6 right now.
But the point is, you can cast something right now because the shields are down.
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
You can cast the black spell because the shields are down. She doesn't have enough to counter it.
Can't do a whole lot of great things at the moment.
And maybe Hyponia.
Alright. Hectonia is.
Yup.
Well, so actually, tap 1 for the soul ring. Then you get a total of 7.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely playing the soul ring.
Yeah, so do that. That's a start.
That is a start.
And now you have 7.
Alrighty. I'm gonna turn the air off. My toes are cold. So
I
we
think
have
it's pretty cold right now. Yeah. That velvet was just
It's-
super
it
warm, and I
is.
did not realize it. Because you can't have velvet around cats.
Why can't you have velvet around cats?
Cat fur just like adheres to it.
Yeah.
What about Carnifex Demon?
Okay.
So
What does
the
that one do?
6/6 flyer, I can pay to. It comes into the battlefield with 2 -1 counters on it. So it's a 4/4. I can pay to remove counters and put a -1/-1 counter on each other creature.
Okay. And
That
are
is
you done?
all I can do.
I'm done.
Can you get through to Duretti?
I don't know. Let me see what the
God.
next card is.
At least I have something if this comes my way.
Yes. Yes, I can.
Awesome.
How do I want to do this?
So I'll have to have you guys tell me what you think of this.
Uh oh.
3, 4, 5, 6. Okay.
Cave Girl only smelt it once while drunk.
Uh-oh.
Loved it. It's a cologne.
Oh.
Just custom place in Europe.
Is it musky and gothy?
Probably.
Yeah.
How big is that demon right now?
Mine?
Yeah.
4/4.
Okay.
I literally just put out a flyer to block whatever's going on there.
That's fine. There's reasons I'm doing this so we can actually keep playing.
It is called Oddity.
Oh, is this the one that Carolyn
Yes.
gave you the sample of, and you like fell in love with it? That's funny. It is musky and gothy.
Well, she found it. She's like, you're gonna love this.
Yeah.
Like she found it and thought of me. Oh, I got a little envelope with it.
Fancy, fancy.
And when does Duretti ultimate?
At 10. So
I
it's.
know
I
it's
need at least 3 more
little
turns. 2 to get him up and 1 to get him
I can
off.
already smell that.
2 to get him up
But
and 1
what
to get
are
him
the
off.
other things that he can do?
He lets me sack an artifact to put one from my graveyard into play, or to let me discard up to 2 cards and draw that many cards.
Sounds like too much work. You shouldn't do that.
That's the new, why'd you play your Planeswalker? It's so much work.
Why did you play your Planeswalker? It's so much work.
Crap.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it over here. Don't worry.
Like, I like the way it smells, because I've smelled it, but...
So...
So
Thoughts?
goth. It is, like, the most goth cologne on the face of the planet.
I'll come over.
It smells a little bit like bourbon and just goth clubs.
Bourbon and Goth Club.
Bourbon and goth.
So,
Attack.
I probably didn't put enough
the
on.
Heb
but-
is coming
and plus we're
your
sick. You
way
can smell it?
Yeah, I
again.
can smell it.
And it's
Pretty-
really
Oh, wow,
I
look
just
at
need
that.
the mana,
It's
so
magnetic.
Nice.
Nice.
I just need the mana so I can kill.
Hey, Kevin Blaze.
Hey, what's up?
I'm done with that. Wait, so how much mana do you need? Should I block it or not block it? Because I'm fine with that happening.
It's up to you. Like, either way, I'm fine.
Okay.
So,
Blah, 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 blah.
So what am I missing? What's going on?
I am going into combat and swinging at Val with Neheb.
Oh, wrong one. So you're just swinging with Neheb?
Yep.
You're not gonna attack already?
Plans. Don't worry.
Okay.
Wait, that's your
Jeez,
commander, yeah?
could you, like,
Sorry,
breathe?
sorry,
like,
sorry,
breathe?
Sorry.
Like-
No, I can't
That's
breathe.
commander.
I literally can't breathe properly
sorry.
right now.
Like,
No,
that,
so I'll block it with this one.
that
If
was
you still
so...
got the mana you need?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna block
I
it.
still get the mana. So, I have
You got a lot of mana.
3 floating.
Yep.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Lots of Neheb mana.
Yep. So I'm just gonna say I'm gonna tap the 2 red. Okay, and then I've got 3. And what are your the size of other things?
Well, I could have a 3/2 flying.
How big is
creature.
your commander?
3/3.
Okay.
Well, okay, so this would be a 4/3. It would be a 5/3 if I crewed it with this. 5/4 if I crewed it with this. This is a 3/1. Sorry, a 4/2. This is a 4/2. So 4/2 flying, 4/2 on the ground. DePaul is 3/3, and the Mizium tank could potentially be a 5/4 flyer.
Well, fine. I'm gonna do tap 2, got 3 floating, so that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Fine. I'm just gonna tap out because don't want to take chances.
There you go.
And I'm going to do Jaya's Emulating Inferno.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
And that means so it would be. So I have 2.
And it doubles or
And
triples?
I have 3. 1. It doesn't triple. I get to deal damage, X amount of damage to 3 targets.
It triple, yeah.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yep.
Actually, I should have done that. Never mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I like it.
Sorry. Trying to make sure. So that would be 7 damage.
Why?
Because I pay 2
Oh, yeah, and you have
for the
7
cost
mana.
of the spell, and I have 7 mana because I
There you
get
go.
3 from Neheb.
Yep.
And so, and with that, I'm going to do 7
Ready.
ready.
Poof.
I'm trying to decide if I want to give you another dwarf.
Well, this is going to wipe us all out. You need to blow that up. Whenever you take a counter off, you put a -1/-1 counter on everything else.
Yes. I put a flyer down for you.
I thought it was for the dragon.
The Hellkite? I mean, it's,
Yeah.
the Hellkite's starting to be a
I'm
flying army.
less worried about that because, sure, I'll be sad to lose my Jackal, but
It puts -2, so the dragon will become a 4/4. Neheb will become. It doesn't. Yeah, it. I'm just saying.
yeah.
Which one's the army boosts?
So, I
what
want
should
to kill your commander.
Okay. I'm gonna crew this vehicle and see if this is a dwarf or a. What do I do with it? Wait, hold on. I knew what that was
Wait a
because I
second.
scried.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to do that because I knew what that is, and I want that there. So, alright, it dies. Oof.
Okay. And then
Well, I'll crew the vehicle, at least. I have a vehicle crewed.
I am going to kill your heirloom blade.
So basically,
Die.
you did that 3 things, and all 3 of them hit me.
Yes.
Shit happens. This also puts.
Alright, so the air nut thing dies?
Yes.
Alright, and I reveal... Fuck! Wait, I may.
So I'm not inclined to do this because it does it to my.
I'm not gonna
creatures
do
as
it.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah.
Pass.
which I don't.
Pass turn.
Okay.
So basically, there's a reason I let all that happen, so that I could
Yeah.
cast that spell next turn and fuck you.
Okay. Like I said.
Like, literally, every one of those things hit me.
That's really
Yes,
funny.
but Maybury got the
like
brunt of
being
it
the
last
archer.
I'm
turn.
like, alright.
She's spreading the love.
I
I just got hit with her commander
twice.
again.
Yep.
Well, I blocked with one.
Yeah.
So
It's still. I'm spreading out the love.
I am sure you are.
And I'm sure you're gonna make me regret
Elvish
it, but you know,
Archdruid.
can't live that.
Oh, is that the one that taps for mana or takes our
Yeah,
things?
and
It's
mana
not the
for
Great
each
Bow.
elf.
But
I
boosts
control.
elves.
Plans within plans.
Alright. You have.
Good news.
How
the
many
stuff can't
creatures do you
fly.
over there?
1.
One.
And I could potentially crew a vehicle and make it a 4/3.
Four.
You're gonna be really sad with all the little elves if this Carnifex demon goes off.
But it does it to my creatures as well, and I'm not.
Yeah, you only have 1 in play.
Yeah, that's not.
No, it says other creatures.
Yeah, it does.
any of my other.
I know, but
You only
I'll
have.
tell
You're
you
literally-
that
I
it's
can't
not going
do
well for me,
any of them.
creature-wise over here right now.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yep.
I'm sorry, but I will
It's
eat
okay.
your shit.
I know.
Well, we got it. We have to do something about her. She's running over the game. So.
We just let her win.
We could just let her win.
It's an option.
We could just let her win.
That's so fun, though.
Oh no, I'm kidding.
Like,
You have to win by crushing your enemies. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Thank you. I'm very small.
You are.
The hobbits.
I'm so mad. Like, I think the Run Fair braid like was too tight and
Yeah,
I
but
pulled my
Does it
hair.
feel good?
No, like I have a little bald spot.
It'll come
like-
back.
I hope so.
It'll grow back.
Alright, what you doing over there, Jay
I'm
Berry?
just gonna pump things up because things are bad. So.
Things are bad. It's bad, Corbin. Corbin, it was
I knew you were
bad.
gonna say that.
Corbin.
So that's a 6/6.
Alrighty then.
Go.
Jesus.
Just gonna make my elves bigger so they can
Alright.
live maybe
Oh, God.
through things.
To the right view.
I think.
The wrong view.
Oh,
I
sorry.
got it. I got you covered. Thanks, fam.
Okay, what are you doing?
I am going to equip the veteran motorist.
Okay.
And then I am going to play a Cataclysmic Gear Hulk.
What does that do?
When it comes into play, everybody picks 1 artifact, 1 creature, 1 enchantment, and 1 planeswalker from among what you control and sack everything else.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't really affect you.
Say that again. Yeah.
I mean, the Chicky Doodle has not been doing much for me, so she's an obvious goner.
Catacly.
Yeah, pull that up.
There it is. Whee.
Oh shit.
Yep, that's super bird.
Oh, shit.
Each player, that includes you.
Yep. Yeah. I choose.
What do you mean it doesn't?
Okay,
It
choose.
doesn't have any, it does. I have to sack this.
No, you don't. You choose 1 creature.
You're
Hey, that's the
good.
creature you choose.
Yeah.
And you get to keep it. Everything else gets sacked. You get
Oh.
1 creature, 1
My
artifact, 1
brain's doing a
planeswalker. Right.
hypothermia.
Goodbye, dragon, because I'm keeping my commander.
This creature, this artifact.
That's why you
Actually,
put
that
the
creature,
blade.
that artifact. Poof, that dies, I reveal. You may, right? Because I knew it. That's the second scry. Is it a may? Yeah, it's the second scry. I want that. Pass turn.
Okay.
I mean, did you really?
How big is that creature?
Oh, no. Well, if you choose Neheb as a creature, that's also a creature.
It's an artifact.
But it's also a
Artifact
creature.
It's
Yeah,
a creature too.
that's. I had to make the same choice. I chose this as a creature, and this is the artifact.
Vampire Nighthawk.
But
All right. It's also a creature.
Yeah.
I know, it sucks.
It's a creature type, a dragon. It's a creature.
Fine.
Yeah.
1/1 Death Touch to this little
I mean, you
guy.
could have brought Neheb back, right?
No.
No, you didn't have a mana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need it. Yeah, now I've
Actually, I
gotta
would
fuck
have to
this
sack
shit
that
up.
too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yep, you're right.
it's...
Because this is the artifact and the creature.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
done.
how big is that?
It's
4/5.
Great.
I don't know.
And this is Vampire Nighthawk, and I bestowed 1/1 Death Touch to Carnifex.
Yep.
And I'm
Oh,
just sitting.
can I counter that?
You can.
I would counter the Nighthawk.
Counter the Nighthawk with Life Force.
Okay.
Sorry, Nighthawk.
It's gonna dive to the Carnifex anyway.
You're done.
Whatevs. I don't. I want a flyer for you.
You have a flyer.
It's right there.
It's a 5/5 flyer.
I know.
Oh, all right. I don't have any flyers.
They're
Yeah.
gone now.
But it's a flying deck, yeah?
No.
No.
There was one card in my deck that
Why
makes
did I
vehicles
think
fly. And it's dead.
Just kidding. I've been thinking that your deck is
That's
a
the
flying deck the entire time.
that's probably dragons.
Maybe.
Like,
It's probably dragons.
Maybe,
Yeah,
like,
right.
it's not.
Jeez.
what is that? Desert?
It already did its thing.
I'm
It
gonna
deals
it
1
deals
damage.
Got it.
Yeah.
So,
And it did-
and I have other things that do interesting things with deserts. So.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I can't really do anything about them because the Carnifex Demon's just gonna kill anything I play.
Sigh, what the hell am I doing with my life?
Feels.
Why does he have 3 counters?
He has 2 counters, and she's using this to show that it's a 1 bestow.
Oh, okay.
So completely off topic, we just decided to name the other snake Hythonia because she hasn't had a name.
Well, there you go. Absolutely. Name the
Nerd
snake
life.
Hythonia.
Sigh.
So I have Hythonia and Hecate.
Could you have taken the snake
Nerd.
that passed away to the vet and would it have lived? Like, what was wrong with it?
He bought it from a meth head.
And it had an eaten in it.
Who
wouldn't
wouldn't
eat.
take care of it.
It wouldn't
and
eat?
It refused to eat for like months, and he tried basically everything, and there's no idea like how old the snake was. It was end of its life. And like
What do I want to do?
Indecision, paralyzation.
it
Yes.
there was just nothing to be done about it.
Oh, if I bring sugar out, would you bleed it?
No.
Sugar? What
Like,
type?
like actual sugar?
No, the thing
Sure
that
it
Casey
is.
brought. They're
Like sugar
hazelnut M&Ms.
cubes?
Yes,
Yeah, I'll eat
I
them.
would.
It was a wild rescued. Yes. Yeah. It just was not a happy creature.
Fine. I am tapping. Do I even need to tap 5? Sure, why not?
Aw, the guy's
This is gonna
smoked
be-
her on it.
Pointless.
That sucks.
Is it gonna be pointless?
All of our animals now are very happy.
Oh, no, she's talking about the snake. The situation
No,
the snake was in.
I
Oh.
know.
I mean, we knew it was gonna happen, we just didn't know when.
Fuck it. I don't really care. 1, 2,
Are those
3, 4,
M&Ms?
5,
Yeah.
6,
I
7.
hate
Ew.
you.
I am tapping 7 to
Thanks.
play an Boar Scale Guardian. I haven't gotten any of my land cycling, so this sucks, but it has flying and haste,
There you go.
and I'm pinging you for 4 because you
shit.
made my shit die.
Okay.
That's how you play Magic.
I think you're out of your mind.
What?
Pass turn.
Okay.
She has no flying
Yeah.
blocker now for this thing.
I'm not going that way with it.
Oh, I see.
I just want it to
I'm
sit
at
on the board right
23!
now.
Like,
I just want some creatures.
It's 23 with one creature.
I
Because
should
I'm a
swing
threat.
with it, but whatevs.
The point is, you're not now.
Well, am I more of a threat after having lost 4 life than I was before I lost 4 life?
Yes. No.
Yeah. Alrighty then.
This is why I will never be skinny.
It's overrated. Like, having been there once.
Oh boy.
A drove of elves.
As power and toughness, hexproof and power and
Green
toughness.
permanents.
Yep.
So does this count now as a green permanent because it's a creature?
No, it's
Alright.
still a colorless creature.
I was just asking.
Does it say it counts as a 3/3 green elf on Freyles?
Let me see.
I think it's just a land that has
It's
a 3.
on Nissa.
Or on Nissa.
It's a creature.
It is a creature, but it's colorless.
Yeah, it's colorless.
Mm.
It's a 0/0 element, so it doesn't say green anywhere.
Mm.
Oh well. Boop. 3.
Anything?
Nope. Not gonna do anything. I'm trying to rebuild.
Sun Titan.
Oh geez.
Oh, great.
And
Hey, look. I've got the Sun Titan playmat.
you do.
We do.
And I will bring a restoration specialist back to play.
That's flying.
Nope, nothing. I don't have anything in here that flies. I can't bring this back because it is CMC, and that's a 4 CMC.
Could you pull up the
backers.
Sun Titan?
Sure. Whenever it enters play or attacks, you bring back a permanent with CMC 3 or less. And, pass turn. Val, you're up.
These things are good. Holy
I'm
crap,
leaving over
man.
there. I'm not reaching in the bulk, so I can get you guys 6, so I don't need any.
I can't have any more. I already feel the sugar coursing through my veins.
A little bit more. Okay, now take it away.
It's going in the other room.
Good.
What you got?
Oh god.
Oh,
All snacks.
yep.
What kind of sauce?
Almonds, lime, chili. What you doing?
I'm thinking. I feel like anything I push is an encounter.
She has no mana. The shields are down. Play everything right now.
Nope. I have 2 mana. That
Where?
In the
Creature. 2 elves in play. I have 2 green
No.
mana.
And they both tap for. Oh, the druid
No,
taps
it
for
counts
2.
for each elf.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Green mana for each elf.
This is
You
bad.
swing that way every turn. Like she shuts your. Yeah.
I have to.
Well,
Ugh. Does everything live currently if I
Yeah.
do this
no.
thing?
Oh.
What dies?
The thing I brought back.
I mean, it takes the counters off or no?
Just you can do it as a response.
It would take the counters off. They
I
negate
just
each
need
other.
to be able to play some stuff.
But it's not going to kill any of them.
I don't want to kill them. I want to have enough.
But the counters don't affect that. She taps
That's
it for
why
the
I'm
number of
asking.
elves in play. Yeah.
I have 2.
Okay. But yeah, and it doesn't kill any elves.
Gotcha.
I should probably just sit.
Yeah. All right. So board states. What do we got? Sun
We're
Titan,
not gonna play
Gear Hulk, Restoration Specialist, a ridiculous Carnifex Demon with a Bestow Death Touch on it,
Wow.
and then on your side, Neheb and a dragon,
Yep.
and some elves, and a life force that counters black spells, which is awful.
You can blame Socks for that one.
Oh,
It's so cute.
It is very cute.
you know your play group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, if Val's not playing black, I am. So
Yeah.
I need to get a photo of that.
it's
If
cheap
it's not
too.
Val, it's you.
I feel like anything I play is gonna get countered right now.
Probably.
Probably.
It's Depends on what it is.
Yeah.
I will.
Nothing good is in this deck.
Yeah, I mean,
Also true. Also, why the life force is in here, and also I was like,
And-
oh, if I play this, I'm
and,
such a
smart.
dick.
NPC, they're 15 cents.
Oh, nice.
They don't. They're
That's
not.
not-
They weren't expensive. I was
Right,
shocked.
nobody plays them except in Commander.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
They're useless in anything else.
In my
But you play them in
defense-
blue-green decks, and then you can change. There are a lot of blue cards that say change the text of one color on a card. So you play them in blue-green decks, and you just shift that to be whatever color you feel like it at the time. And it just counters whatever color you feel like. So, sorry, we're talking about Life Force.
Yeah.
Hello, 9 people. You're
Hello,
not very
9 people.
chatty.
Hello, 9 bots.
What should do
I
it?
don't know. I think everything's gonna be countered.
Everyone, wash your hands often so you don't get sick like us.
I'm not sick yet.
You're
Chamber
not
and I
sick yet.
have, not the flu, but we have a cold.
Right.
We have a cold.
I'll just sit.
We also got our flu vaccines because you
Okay.
can get them while you have a cold, so also get
Okay.
vaccinated.
And the more you know. No. And that's
Okay,
one to grow on.
draw. Okay. How big is the Sun Titan?
6/6. But I will likely double block.
To get rid of him.
Absolutely, I will double block to kill the head.
But I would get to assign damage.
Sure.
Although you'd use the puny thing probably. 'cause
No, I would
that's all
double
the
block
thing.
with this, and you don't have enough to kill the Sun Titan.
I'm not a bot. I promise.
I'm not a bot, I promise.
6, 7,
Oh
8.
God.
I'm pretty sure you weren't a buy.
There are 2 other targets at the table.
No.
But who's the worst?
What's up, Captain Harris?
Uh,
I'm too snarky and awkward to be about like my life in a nutshell.
Well, she can't target herself.
Right.
I mean, what's the second word?
I'm gonna sit. Because I need to consider my life options.
I think that's a lovely idea.
I want an excuse to play my pork roast elemental.
Poor gross, that mental. Too awkward and snarky to be a bot. That's awesome. Captain Harris, that sounds exactly like what a bot would say.
That was
Right.
actually Bunny.
No, Captain Harris sounds like something a bot would say.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Is there MTG suicide? Yeah, it's called I'm sleepy, I'm folding.
That was me last game somehow. Pulling it out last minute.
I can't play anything. I have nothing to play.
Suck.
Yep. Go.
Keep draw. Oh, that's a thing. I think I'm just gonna let a Spear of Heliod sit right there and destroy a creature that does damage to me.
Oh God.
Can you pull it up?
I'll save the 3 mana.
Can I take that back?
Oh,
There was
okay.
one thing I could have
Go ahead,
played.
do it.
I'm sorry.
It might change
I
my-
miscounted my land.
Friendly
For a
games.
stupid reason.
There you go.
Oh,
I'll
that's beautiful.
play a Soul
Yeah.
of the Harvest. Hey, you can play spells again.
Yay!
I'm tapped out.
For a turn. For one
That-
turn.
Then if you re-tap that, shouldn't she have been able to...
No, because it,
No.
it was
Oh,
her
it came
turn.
after.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That really is.
after-
I've never actually looked at the landscape in that. That's a gorgeous landscape.
Mhm.
Thanks, Bunny. I did look like death today. Yeah, we are going to stop after this one, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to enter my attack step. What do you got over there?
I have a 6/6 trampler. And 3. Oh wait, 4 now because I have another green permanent.
4/4 and whatever, huh?
4/4 and a
Cuddly
6/6.
death. Yeah, half of us are sick, and I'm just tired. I slept like shit like all week.
It's been a rough week.
We finally figure out like what kind of mattress topper we need though, so I think maybe I'll be okay soon.
You know what? I'm going to sit tight right now.
Did you see our cool new business cards?
Okay.
Here's our cool new business pass turn. Val, you're up.
Well,
Val, play a spell. I can't do anything about it.
Whee! Flip.
Fair. All right, you flip on that side. I'll stay on this side.
I'll just need a bang.
Oh well, fine.
Do I want to know what that means?
I drank a bang earlier today. sour ones, so good.
Are they sugar free?
Thanks,
Obviously.
Captain Harris.
They're keto.
Excellent. That's pretty too. What is that? Oh, it's the
It's yours?
lime mint elderflower
Ooh, that
Sparkly
sounds
water.
sparkly water. Alrighty then.
I'll bring you one.
There was
If you
a
want.
lemonade elderflower.
I'd be down for trying
Sky syrup.
some.
Cool.
Maybe not today.
Try it. I
because
would
plaguey.
definitely drink something with that in it.
Yeah.
I already drank out of it, so no.
Yep.
Is it
Hard
is it
pass.
artifact
Hard
factory?
pass.
Yeah. My deck's all about
I
artifacts.
mean,
Yeah, I
I
drank
don't
like
think I should
literally
be.
one sip.
Shit.
It's elves and cars, or sorry, dwarves
What
and
is it?
cars.
Artifact fuckery?
What do
No.
you mean?
Like if I play
He
something,
doesn't
you
mess
fuck it
with other people's.
No.
up.
I-
Drink sipping hobgoblin. I really am though.
Sorry.
I had like 2 sips of the bag and fucking walked out of the house and forgot it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh god. All right.
Play the horrible things. Play them all.
Yeah, one of my brothers never finishes a soda.
That's awful.
Like,
That's terrible.
like what is
Oh,
wrong
this is
with
not
you?
great.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
You got it all. What do you got?
8.
Some armor.
Argentum armor?
Yeah. And
What does it do?
and a Wayfarer's bauble. I'll tap this differently.
Yeah.
5, 6, 7.
Yep.
Equip creature gets 6/6 whenever a creature attacks, destroy target permanent, equip 6. So
Ow.
I can't even equip it. I guess you could tell me that I can't equip it.
No.
You can't.
Why? You need you need
Oh
6
wait,
more mana.
this isn't black.
You could play it right now.
But she can't counter regardless. 'cause
Oh, yeah,
it's
you should probably
black.
play something
I
that's
should
black
play
this turn.
something else.
Yeah.
Oh,
should play
yeah.
something that's black.
Keep the wayfarers.
Yeah. Oh jeez.
Put the wayfarers back into your hand.
No, I'm playing that regardless.
Oh, okay.
I have mana.
Right, so
There you
set
go.
aside mana for wayfarer. Okay.
What do I have total?
7,
2, 3,
right?
4, 5, 6. I have 8.
8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're playing
7
the
left after the
werewolf,
bubble.
yeah.
7. Do I want to do that? No, I can play that without having
You're
a issue
doing
as well.
it. Okay.
Then do it.
I keep thinking I can't play anything.
You're not. You can play something now.
I know.
Yeah, Hythonia's
Get it
probably a
in
good
while
guy
you
right
can.
now.
Probably, yeah.
Because if not...
It's gotta be zombies.
No!
Yeah.
Why?
Because if you trigger that, you're going to wipe
I'm
out
not
your zombie
trying
horde.
to trigger that.
Okay.
You sure?
I don't know. I don't have zombie tokens.
Doesn't matter. Just use dice.
Yeah, we know you have 13 zombies.
Oh, okay, fine.
Okay, Intercon Revenant.
All right.
What is that?
Doubles
double.
black mana production.
Okay.
Still play the Wayfarer.
Yep.
Sorry.
Do you have to untap that last mana? Tap
The
that
Zombie
last-
horrors?
6,
What?
2, 3.
Hordes.
So she is
Hordes,
one
damn it,
left.
hordes.
So I have 2 left.
Okay.
And can't do anything with them.
Yeah.
Well, now that
Okay.
makes 2, you can crack it.
Yeah.
Or you could save the 2 and wipe out.
So 6,
No, just
7. No, she only has 8 total.
Mana?
Right,
Oh,
6
but
for
it
that
doubles.
and a double, yeah.
Aha.
Yeah.
Zombie horrors. Yeah, no.
Yep.
I have a lot of zombie porn.
Okay.
Just saying.
One of
Draw.
the first dates
Yay.
Gabriel
Gifts?
and I went on was Zombie Hook the, what's her name? Janet Jameson.
I have that
Zombie.
Zombie strippers.
Zombie strippers.
With, what's his name from, Robert England is in that.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, people keep giving it to me as gifts for
Can I
birthdays
see
and
that
whatever.
Nirkana Revenant?
I'll bring it up.
Oh my god.
Aw, poor Gabriel. That's what's in our future. Can you hear her coughing up there?
I deny this reality.
Funny.
I deny this
Jeez.
reality
I
entirely.
love the purple in this, by the way.
Yeah.
Vampire boobs.
Tits and magic. Tits and purple magic.
So, I mean, can she say that I can't do the...
I'm gonna
1/1
sit
stack?
again.
No, it's
Yeah.
not a black spell. It's an effect. Ability.
Just want to make sure. Not that I ever play it for that.
So
I think I played
if
it for
it
that,
was
like,
something
once.
counter,
So it's a kill, by the way, it's a kill shot. If there were no other creatures in play, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. It becomes an 18/18 creature.
Oh, yeah, I never played that.
It is a kill shot.
Yeah. Oh, my back.
People forget. I've killed people with that in Chainer.
I've done it like twice. I've played with it like that twice.
I mean, usually I'm trying to get an exsanguinate loop to go off with it, but...
I had to tutor and I didn't get an exterminate.
Problem is, if I'm playing against somebody who has a ton of counterspells in their hand, that loop isn't going to work. But beating somebody in the face with the 20/20 Nirvana Revenant will.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I wish it flew.
No!
I mean, you could make it fly.
Yeah, no.
Broken its sock.
Hey, I put it in everything black.
Pass turn, I'm gonna crack my
Evolving.
Terramorphic
Okay.
and go.
Hold on.
I feel like I'll remember that at this point.
See if I can get back in this game.
Alright, untap a deep draw. That's funny.
Night, Bunny.
Good night, Bunny.
Happy
Night.
birthday.
Yes. I should
thanks
probably
for the treats.
stop shaking the table.
Yeah.
It's like the stream looks like an earthquake. Why? Because I'm wiggling.
Everyone like stumble around the room and grab onto things. Like Star Trek.
Yeah.
The camera shakes.
I love it.
What are you doing?
I'm trying to figure out if I want to attack somebody to get something back from my graveyard with the Sun Titan.
What's even in your graveyard?
That's where a bog is going to be fantastic.
Alright, NPC, I'm coming at you for 7.
How is it 7?
Spear Heliod.
It's not first strike, right?
Nope. You can double block it and kill it. And I'll get to kill one of them, but I want the Heirloom Blade black.
Oh, God, no.
Fine. Double block. I
Alright.
want it dead.
I'm killing your flyer, actually.
Okay, that's fine.
Neheb stays.
Because if Neheb attacks me, I kill it with the spear.
Okay.
All
I have other ways to make you suffer.
All
Accurate. That's our chaos muppet.
Perfectly
That's our
fine.
chaos muppet.
Like, bitch, try me.
That's your version of don't start nothing, there won't be nothing.
Exactly.
I have other ways in which
Peace Walker
to destroy
Colossus.
What does that do?
It's a 6/6 vehicle that can crew other vehicles. Here, I'll show you.
Yeah, pull it up, please.
But I don't actually have any other vehicles in play, so it's kind of pointless. But
I mean, it's a 6/6 on the board.
for 2 mana, I can give another target vehicle. I can turn another vehicle into a creature
That's awful.
instead of
wow.
crewing it.
That's
But
crazy.
it would help if I had another fucking vehicle. Pass turn.
Okay.
Peace, its sole purpose is fear.
I know, it's-
So you're like, right.
Nice.
Its sole purpose is fear.
Oh my god. Dang, Sahili, I didn't know you were so mean. It's brutal.
So, lots of mana.
Yes.
Yeah, now I have lots of mana.
Yeah, you need to just sit tight and wait for the
January
exsanguinate.
has lots of mana.
So
well, by lots.
this would be one of
I
those
actually
moments where you
had
should
your
swing
L.
with it.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill that enchantment.
I can counter up to 3 spells.
In general? Or black spells?
Black
Black
spells. Only black spells.
I'm so amused I gave you that proxy.
Is that the armor?
Wait, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10.
No. 2.
It's an artifact.
No.
And I've got
It's Cthulhu.
3 after that.
Oh, it's colorless Eldrazi.
Yep.
Nice.
Which
I gotta
one is
kill
it?
that
Is it
enchantment.
Tulamog?
Yeah, it's a little mog.
Yeah, destroy a target artifact.
Destroy any
Permanent.
permanent.
Destroy permanent. Alright.
It's also Annihilator 4.
Legit.
I just have to get rid of that.
No, that's what you do.
And it's indestructible.
It's indestructible with 10 times.
That's what
Anybody
you do.
got a board wipe?
When Ulamog is put into the graveyard from anywhere its owner shuffles his or graveyard into the library, which I'm not told about, but whatever. So I've got 3 left to. What else?
Still feel like you were being too nice when
Well, you know, Do it have would require her to draw? Oh, well.
I'll just do this now. And I've got the one which I can't do anything with.
Creature, indestructible, Annihilator 4,
Yeah, the only way to get rid of it is to exile it.
Exile.
And the Annihilator is just going to shut people off.
Yeah.
I literally just needed to kill that card. I don't care if this dies.
Just out of curiosity.
A basic land tapped.
$50. Yep. 50 for the ultimate box topper. Yeah, it's $25. Not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad.
For Umar?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to like.
It was up in the $75 or $80 range
You
for a while,
did?
I thought.
Yeah.
Does
They never
anybody
printed it.
You have to have like a lot of like pieces
No.
to make
No.
an Eldrazi deck workable, because they're so pricey.
Yeah.
No one aspires.
Yeah.
Nope.
Nope.
30. I'm going to roll for it.
I can kill it if it comes at me. Okay. What am I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I would not include him.
I'm not, yeah. Would you prefer evens or odds?
Odds. Sorry, Jafer.
You're being attacked?
Yes.
With what?
4, 4 flyer.
7. No, it's
It still
It
has
comes into
two
play with
negative
2 counters, and you got to take the
it's
counters.
a 5/5 flyer because it's got the
It's a 4/4. Comes into play with
4/4.
2 of these, and then becomes a 5/5.
5/5.
And what happens? Does something happen?
5/5 flying
No.
death touch.
So
No.
it's just a 5/5 flyer with
Yeah.
death touch?
Mhm.
Okay. I was under the impression that something horrible happened.
No,
Well,
I
something
feel
horrible
better.
did happen, or Ulamog's going to kill us all.
It's
Are
the
you done?
counter thing.
Okay.
It gives, yeah, I'm done. It gives -1/-1 every time I pay to take the counters off to everything, including my stuff.
Including Ulamog.
Yeah, I mean everything.
Yep.
Fine. Guess I'm gonna have to do this because
I love this one.
Yeah, me too.
everything's horrible.
Well, and there's really not much you can do about Ulamog in a red deck.
With this Heliod, it's for creatures.
Creatures I control get +1/+1 and destroy target creature that dealt damage to me this turn.
Great. What's the
great.
size of your creatures? I can't do anything about hers, so I'm not like
4/5, potentially a 6/6, and a 5/2.
Okay. Here's what I'm gonna do. You might be okay, or you might not be okay with it, but
Who knows? It's magic.
I am going to tap 2 and play Oath of Chandra,
Yep.
and deal 3 damage to that big something 2 creature. The one that the blade's attached to.
In response, I will sacrifice it to return an artifact from my graveyard to my hand.
How are you doing that?
It has 1 white. Sacrifice to return an artifact or enchantment from my graveyard to my
Okay.
hand. Dwarf dies. I'm going to reveal until I get there, but I'm putting... I'm putting a Smuggler's Copter back in my hand.
Okay.
And then I reveal until I hit a dwarf. Hey, a Gearful Ace comes to my hand.
Gear shift ace.
And actually, you know what? I'm going to crew the Peace Walker Colossus before I sack it. So that's a creature this turn. So I have 3 mana. 2. Oh, I didn't even need the 2. I just tap it to crew the Peace Walker. Then I sack it, so I still have 2 mana.
Okay, fine.
Just in case you swing at me with Nahab.
No,
How do
I'm
you
not.
how do you not pay the 2 mana for the?
I crewed it. I
Peace
actually
Walker?
tapped the creature to crew it.
Oh.
I killed it, is the thing. I'm having 3 to play Tybalt,
Nice.
which matters
Nobody can
because
gain life,
at
right?
the end, yes, and at the end step, you're all gonna take 2 damage
Yeah, but you-
because Oath of Chandra.
Sure.
Okay.
Because the Planeswalker
Chandra,
can't.
the art's really sweet.
Yeah. Here, hold on. So, Oath of
And
Chandra.
the sad part is
It's
because
basically a lightning bolt.
I
That's really
don't
cool.
know which way Ulamog is going, so
I can't remember a lot.
I'm taking Tybalt down and giving
Off
myself
some demons.
yeah
Yeah.
And,
1/1 devil creature.
Okay.
So and pass turn.
and wait, hold on.
Sorry,
Tybalt,
yeah,
which one?
so-
T-I-B-A-L-T or T-Y?
Tibalti or
The
LT.
rakish
Which
one.
one?
Rakish.
Yeah,
Inquisitor?
that one.
Right.
So
Yeah,
now we
so-
all take 2 damage.
Yes. You
Well,
all take-
because of Chandra's thingy.
yeah. And then pass turn.
Okay.
Yep.
21.
Alright.
The good news is, with Ulamog out and decimating everything, this game will go much faster.
Yes, it will.
In theory.
So I'm wondering. Let's
gonna
do the
bring
thing we were
You
talking about
better
last time.
swing with it every time. If you do not swing it with it
Yeah,
every
seriously.
time, I'm gonna have questions.
You
They
know-
might not be very nice questions.
Alright.
That's really funny.
I played that first.
Like, bitch, what?
Yeah, that's like
Basically.
you need to murder people.
I played a Farhaven Elf. Search my library for basic land card, put it on the battlefield tap, then I shuffle my library.
So that actually
and
does.
I'm gonna
You like it better
do
that way?
another Thing.
Side by side?
I like this version because it focuses. You can see our play mats better and see our board
It's- I mean,
states
it's-
better.
It's something we can flip to
Night,
right now.
Captain
yeah.
Harris.
Night, Captain Harris.
Night,
Good night.
Captain Harris.
Thanks for
Sleep
hanging.
well. Have a good
Um,
weekend.
It's not that I don't like this, I just don't like it as the standard. But I do like that we switch through plenty of times and it's not gonna be like
Exactly.
the whole.
Try not to hit the
Yeah.
camera.
There you go. I'm not gonna.
No, it was wobbling as you walked by. Wobbly, wobbly.
All right. And
Shout
then,
out to DM for basically creating us an entire studio that we're gonna be moving into
Yeah.
soon-ish.
And then
It's up to
because
a
I
certain
played
person finishing wiring.
Yeah, this weekend's not good.
I got
then
a
because
text from somebody else today asking if he wanted to come knock a hole in my wall.
I know. He told me his thoughts about that this morning.
All right. I haven't played a land this turn. I play a land. I played Master Myers. I drew a card. The card was land. I played it.
Cool.
Still. Oh shit.
I'll
Alright,
play up a little
and
bit.
I'm probably just gonna have to hide here, aren't I?
Until Ulamog comes knocking.
Yeah. Go.
God. That's not helpful.
Jibber, you can't see your hand right now, but you almost can.
Oh.
Not that I know elf cards, but
Yeah.
Jesus.
They don't really show up that clearly anyway.
That. Smuggler's Copter.
so all kinds of things happening right now.
Actually, yeah, right. And then Heirloom Blade on the Gearshift Ace, and I'm done.
Alright, can you scroll through what just happened while I draw?
Sure. I played a Smuggler's Copter, a Gearshift Ace, and I attached the Heirloom Blade to the Gearshift Ace.
There is
Oh.
a flyer out.
I've been forgetting.
There is no flyer out over here.
I forgot to draw 2 cards.
It's
from
a
Soul of
vehicle.
the
I have to
Harvest.
crew it. I could have it if I wanted to, but
Okay.
I forgot to draw 2 cards because of Soul of the Harvest, so I just
Oh, I love that. It's so cute.
did that in the wrong
And there's
order.
that one and the black one.
Oh, yeah.
They're so adorable.
what is the Soul of the Harvest? I
Soul
forget.
of the Harvest.
And nobody's gaining life.
Yeah, no one's getting life.
I can't remember the other one. It's the same Soul of the Harvest, but it's a black card and it's like
Hmm.
a different view of it.
That thing.
It's adorable.
So
Non-token
like-
creature enters under your control. You draw a card.
Yeah. Alright, 2.
So I'm assuming you have untapped mana currently.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, not that it matters. The life force is gone.
Yeah.
But you killed the life force, so you can play
Right.
things again.
Right.
It's gone.
No, you're the archenemy now.
I know.
Oh, burger.
I turned off the air, so.
Yoink.
this is happening.
Argentum armor on Ulamog,
Oh god.
which is
That's a
ridiculous.
thing.
How big is it
then,
now?
16/16.
16/16, Annihilator 4, and it destroys something when it attacks.
Nice.
And I am also playing
Palace
Palace
Siege.
Siege. I
Which
don't even think
does
there's anything in my graveyard that I would want back.
I
No.
would do the other
I'm
version.
definitely doing
2 damage.
dragons.
Which it does.
What does Palace Siege Dragons do?
Yeah, can you
At the
bring
beginning
it
of
up?
your
Oh,
upkeep,
sure, I'm sorry.
each opponent loses 2 life. And
I
you
thought we all
gain
knew what
2
it
life.
did.
No.
The
I have not
enchantment.
a card
Play
encyclopedia.
it all super often. Yeah, I'm not either. I know art. And that's it.
Wait, how'd the
The beginning of
armor...
your-
Oh, mana doubler.
Well, you can't gain life.
Right.
Players can't gain life.
So you might as well do the other one then.
Oh shit.
Well, it doesn't matter. It
I
sits
mean, you
there
can choose the other
until
one.
you kill Jay Berry, and then
No, me.
No.
or until you kill
Yeah.
NPC, and then you can gain life again.
Yeah, but I'm probably gonna sack that secret.
You know, I'm
like,
fine playing it, and I'll just play cons.
There you go.
That's fine. Okay. Oh, my fucking back.
Okay, anyway.
Hey, all those things you countered, you
What
can
are
get
we
back.
doing?
Why?
All the things I countered if she chose cons.
I chose cons,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but there's not really.
She doesn't get
There's
anything
3
yet.
creatures. Two creatures.
She doesn't get
I guess.
anything yet.
Yeah.
So let's play the
Yeah.
turn.
Doesn't
Play the
matter.
turn.
It is now 1.
So.
Yeah.
12, 4, okay.
Wait. So how did you play the armor, equip
6,
the armor,
12.
and then play that?
14. 14.
That's 6, 12, 17.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh shit, I totally counted wrong.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Okay.
That's fine, we'll just play him.
There you go.
Changeling.
Okay.
Okay.
2, 4, 6, 8.
I mean, it's 14, so.
No, you're
There's
still one
one.
off.
I have 1 extra,
Oh.
which is fine.
Okay.
We'll just say he gets enough touch now.
Alright, now attack with Ulamog. Who are you gonna pick? Are you gonna roll a die?
Probably.
Okay.
Because you can kill it, right?
Who?
Ulamar?
No.
No, it's
It's indestructible. I
It's
can't kill it.
indestructible.
Nobody can kill it.
Oh,
You
and
can only
kill my
exile it.
Firefox demon.
You can only
Why?
exile it.
You said that last turn.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, if something does combat damage to me, I can kill it. But I can't kill Ulamog. Or you could just blow that up with Ulamog when it attacks, because you pick any permanent in play.
Yeah. Okay.
She picks the permanent?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, because of the armor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because Ulamog is Annihilator
Yeah.
4, so then we get to pick our doom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or whoever she attacks.
I don't think I actually want to.
You attack with Ulamog.
Yeah, just
I just
attack
curious.
I was
somebody.
gonna roll for Carnivex demon, and I don't actually.
No, keep that as a blocker.
Yeah, I don't think I want to.
Yeah, don't attack with the demon.
Alright.
Honestly-
Who are you picking for Ulamog? Ooh.
I mean, don't start one. None will be none, but like it's this.
No, but what I'm
Okay.
saying is, you can. I won't tell her.
Yeah, don't influence her.
If you
That
pop
thing.
off the Carnifex demon, my Gearsha face dies, the demons die, and half of that
But I
shit
can do
over
that
there dies.
anytime.
Right,
So I'm
but
just
you do it before you
sitting
attack
on
with
that.
Ulamog, and those aren't things that are available
Decimate.
to be
Yeah.
annihilated.
I can't. I've spent all of my mana
Oh, you
other
don't
than
even
one.
have to. Alright, yeah, never mind then.
So I have 1.
Yeah, you
Okay.
didn't have to do that, though. That's okay.
Well, I mean, I'm playing that regardless, but I still have 1 right now.
Well, you'll kill
to
it if you do the
whatevs.
Carnifex. Or you'll put a -1/-1 counter.
I'm fine
I'd
with
sit
that
tight.
right now. Anyway, so fuck that thing.
Okay, well,
So
who are you
you're
attacking?
You.
Attacking me.
Just that.
Alright,
And you're getting rid of this.
You know it's not, but you would think that it was. It's just a regular commander game.
Yep. Yeah, it's always like that. Gear shift ace.
Are you allowed to scry? On the
No,
fly?
when the gear shift ace dies,
Oh,
I reveal
okay,
it's a
okay.
dwarf.
Okay.
So that's 2. No, it's just 1.
Yep.
Fuck you.
Ah!
3 lands?
Yep, and a cataclysm demon. A cataclysm.
Wait,
demon
how
is
many
on.
lands did you throw in there? Oh, it's 4. Never
Yeah.
mind.
Wait, did you throw 5 things away?
She killed one with the
Oh,
armor.
and then 4. Oh, got
Yeah.
it, I got it.
And you
Okay.
block
And I blocked.
16.
How many lands did you throw?
3.
3? But you also removed the one dwarf creature. So she killed the spear. You
And
got
the
rid of
dwarf
the
and
one.
3 lands. It's Annihilator
That's
4.
4.
Yeah. Mhm.
But
Yeah.
then what was the fourth thing you threw in
I
there?
blocked.
Which I forgot
So I
about.
could. So I don't have to take 16
When I
damage.
swung.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I forgot about the Annihilator when I swung with you with that.
Yeah.
So that's a
Well,
thing.
you have to. I mean, you don't let Ulamog sit and play and not attack. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
Oh, no, I know. I was going to attack. I just completely forgot about
Oh,
the
yeah.
added shit of the
Are
Annihilator.
you
Right.
done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it trample?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because that's what it needs.
It's indestructible. It's blockable.
Yeah.
But I forgot about the Annihilator
Yeah.
when I threw it at him.
Yeah, Annihilators. The game's over functionally, unless somebody comes up with something. It's just you hit one person
Yeah.
each turn.
Exile, yeah.
I've got to tap 2. I'm
But
going to
it is
cycle this desert.
Yep.
Because
Look,
answers.
there aren't any in your deck.
Uh,
You gonna exile Ulamog in a mono red deck?
that's not gonna help. That's not gonna help. How many of your creatures fly?
Mine, just one. Just the Carnifex.
Just one. Sigh. This is terrible.
Of course it is. We let her double her mana.
I mean, Typhonia, we know.
Yeah.
Carnifex Demon's new. Fair warning. It's past
Can
2 weeks
anyone
now.
pump up my creatures?
Nope.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5. I'm going to play Seismic Elemental. So,
Blow up the mono doubler.
well, it's
Oh, it's not that there's slow damage.
it's
Yeah.
saying it
Creatures
enters.
without flying can't block.
Oh, I thought it
So
was
mono
the for damage.
doubler can't block. And then how am I gonna do this?
Well, you're gonna get 3 or 4 mana.
I'm gonna throw Neheb, and I'm contemplating the one demon.
Save it as a sack outlet. Well,
no,
you're gonna put
it
2 more
would
in.
still. Huh?
You're gonna put 2 more in with Tybalt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one more.
Got it.
So, and then get the one demon. Yeah, so throw in a head.
Commander's going my way.
Yeah, 4/6.
Oh,
And you can't block with this.
Okay.
The Carnifex Demon is
I've
Death
got
Touch.
this Death Toucher, though.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Well, that's okay. If it dies, that's fine. You can
Huh.
probably just recast that. No, you can't.
Did I?
This is a 2/2 Death Toucher, and that is a flying Death Toucher.
No, this is not Death Touch. You don't have any mana to make it Death Touch.
I paid for that.
Until the end
Doesn't
of your, until the end of
matter.
your turn.
Like, yeah,
No.
when you tap
My
it.
brain.
My brain hurts.
My brain hurts.
Ugh.
Just kidding, though.
Yeah, I'm feeling
I mean,
it.
I'll still block it, though. I don't care if that does.
That's fine.
The tigers?
Yeah. this
So
is
you're
6.
blocking it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I
You
guess.
you take 3 damage because of Flict.
Okay. Yep. And then
If you block it, you take 3 damage. If you don't block it, you take 4.
yeah.
What's commander damage? All of it, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just do 4 then, I guess.
Well, the flict is not commander damage.
Because
It's
not
loss
combat
of
damage.
life.
Yeah, okay. That's
So
what I was asking. So 3.
yeah. And then that gives me 4 mana. So fine. Wait. So I actually don't need to do that because Neheb gives me the 3. I'm just going to play the Hellion. I'm not going to devour anything because
No.
shit's real.
Yep.
And pass turn.
Tap. Draw.
Card draw would be awesome.
Can you play it again and at least blow up the Argentum?
Play what again?
Freyles?
At this point? Oh yeah. You could blow up the armor.
It's that. stops everything
Is
but the 4
that on
Annihilator.
Is that on Ulamog?
Yeah.
I mean, if
I'm
you
gonna do something else.
if you can exile
That's fine.
Ulog, that'd be great.
See how it goes.
Isn't that Druid's song that turns target permanent into a tree folk?
An ent?
Alright, I'm gonna tap 5.
Did we do our...
I'm gonna do an overwhelming stampede.
Oh no.
No!
Everything of mine gets +6/+6 and trample, and I'm full swinging at Val.
That is terrible.
I think you're dead.
Alright,
Oh, yeah.
so 12/12 trample, 12/12 trample.
So bad.
This is what I get for killing that 11/11 trample. 9/9 trample.
Add it up. I think
Yeah, what's
you're
the
dead.
total?
24 plus 11 is
30.
36.
35.
35. 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44,
So bad.
45,
You're
46,
dead.
47, 48, 49, 50, 51,
You're dead.
Because even if she blocks.
Doesn't matter if
51, and so do you want to kill something on the way out, I guess, is the
Yeah,
question.
because you have the one death
Basically.
toucher.
For
From Hellsword 70.
What is the
the biggest thing is a 12/12.
Kill the druid. That taps for a shit ton of mana.
It taps for, well, I guess, what, 4
5.
now?
4 mana. 5
I
mana.
mean, it's an elf deck, and I'm dead, so I don't care.
Yeah.
Well,
Like, you should actually just go out and be like, fuck you, you deal with the elves now.
Basically, yeah. So I'm just gonna kill the biggest one.
So either
The
this one or this
soul,
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me
The
the card draw
adorable
one.
one.
The card draw one's probably a good
The
one.
cute one on the left.
This one?
The cute one on the left.
This one? Master Admirers, the one you gave me?
Yep.
This one?
Yes.
Soul Harvest. Alright. Jed, blocking anything else? Can you kill anything else by blocking?
I mean, it's a
No.
No, she can't kill anything else.
4/4, so no.
Alright.
I forgot. That was a
That
good
was
go.
awesome.
Yeah, that was.
That was fucking
I was
great.
like,
I wasn't expecting that. Like,
I was like,
My
I'm gonna
next goal
do
was
this.
Lightning Greaves, and that would have been terrible. Bantu's Monument.
Alright.
Bloodline.
That would've got it.
Crypt Guest.
so
There it
the
was.
Lightning Greaves would have.
That was my next draw.
Yeah.
Pass.
Crazy.
Pass turn. I think I've done enough for you.
You have.
Oh shit. Good
Wow.
luck, Alex.
Oh, it's,
Bloodfire Dwarf.
what does
That
that
was
do?
Brutal.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
This is hilarious. Bloodfire Dwarf, it's just an old school dwarf, and it's in the deck just for tokens. I sack it to do 1 point of damage to each creature without flying.
I see.
It's a 1/1 dwarf. Cool art, though. Old school magic art. And then
Thanks for killing me because I really have to be.
one of the 7 dwarves
Yeah, finally.
shit, it's time.
At last.
at long last. And then I put.
Which one is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
What does
It's
it do?
they don't have it now. It's just the
Aw.
exact 7 dwarves. I'm gonna
Oh.
put the heirloom blade on the Bloodfire Dwarf,
Okay.
and I'm.
I'm tapped out, I mean. You can
I don't
hit
have
me.
any mana, so I might. Now I'm gonna crew it to block.
Alright.
I'm
Okay.
pass turn.
I'm tapped.
You're probably gonna kill me. Yeah.
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 Oh, and
yeah.
look, conveniently, already
Yeah.
located over Val.
There's no dead
Ha.
peanuts.
Oh boy.
Dead stuff I
We're
can't eat.
dead.
This is fun. Well, you're not gonna like this.
I know.
Actually, everyone's gonna be fine.
Okay.
Actually.
Are we doing another game or
Um,
no?
No.
We're gonna
No.
get like 1:30 here.
No.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we're sick.
Kill us
I think
fast.
Right.
we're all in total agreement.
I'm working on it. We're considering it.
I think I can actually have a real day tomorrow.
I gotta go to Costco. I try not to do anything on Fridays because I'm like so put out by being
I
awake and
feel
alive
like
all day
I
on
at least
Thursdays.
have to hit you with Neheb because
Me?
yes,
Okay.
that's not Neheb.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll
Actually, how much mana do I have? How much would that be?
Look, it's Dead Hythonia.
Sure. Paying you for 4.
Alright, I take 4.
So I have 4 mana, because Okay, so I'm going to play a Blood Moon. All non-basic lands are mountains.
Alrighty then.
So we can't tap for.
Oh, that's awesome!
We can't tap for.
I need more red mana!
There you go.
So I can't play anything now.
No,
Is
you
that-
can non-basic. So,
Okay.
No. They're basic lands are whatever they are.
yeah. Your
Oh,
forest
so-
Non-basics.
Oh.
So all of my lands...
Oh, sorry, I heard.
Well, 3 of my lands.
And I'm going to tap the one colorless for Chandra's regulator, which it's not relevant because
Yeah, you
I don't have any. And pass turn.
Alright. You're all very welcome.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah. That was like, okay.
That was very unexpected.
Yeah.
Might I even say super unexpected?
Yeah.
Really. I was sitting here just like counting how much total damage I could do, and I was like, I think I got this.
Yeah, that was pretty nutty.
Yeah.
I mean, that card's a game winner usually.
Yeah. Alright, what do I want to do? I want to play my commander.
By the way, I just love these sleeves. Like,
They are very cute.
Alright,
Okay. They sold out super quick too. Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
The
I
Liliana
wanted,
one is
I wanted the
also possible
Liliana
to find.
ones, and I just
It
didn't
looks
get
like
to
a
it
little
in
goblin
time.
is getting scorched
getting fried, yeah.
because it's got little ears. And it's got X's for eyes.
Alright. 7.
Oh god.
Oh,
Wave of Vitriol.
What's it do?
Each player sacrifices all artifacts, enchantments, and non-basic lands he or she controls. For each land sacrificed this way, its controller may search for his or her library for a basic land card and put it on the battlefield tapped.
Alright, so.
Then you shuffle your library.
all artifacts and enchantments. Okay.
Yeah, that's.
Yep.
Poof.
And I think my desert goes,
Yep,
correct?
it's a non-basic.
Because it's
Yep,
non-basic.
it's non-basic.
But everything else is okay.
I have
Yep.
like 8 lands in my graveyard now.
And I get a mountain.
Is that a good thing?
Well, there's no. It's weird to have 8 lands in my
Aw.
graveyard in this deck.
It comes in tapped, right?
Yeah, your lands will come in tapped.
Mountain,
For each
Mountain.
one, each land you sack this way,
lanes.
you bring it, put it
Damn
in
it.
tapped.
This was the next card, by the way. That would have been fantastic because I would have played Jaya's thing.
Whoops, I need another
again.
plane. There we go.
But too bad.
That's only 6.
Gosh.
Ah.
Oh, I gotcha.
No, I think I caught it.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Like,
Those shoes are crazy, though. Fluvogs.
yeah, I love them.
Everything is bad. Mm-hmm.
I have a 2/2 dwarf and a 1/1 dwarf.
21 life. Alright.
I have 39 life.
That's a lot of life.
Yes, it is.
I don't like it. I don't want it.
Oh, this should have gone
Yeah.
because it's an enchantment.
So the 2/2 Hellion and a 4/4.
And I have 2 little devils.
And no
as
one can
well.
gain life still.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And 2 little devils.
Yep.
I think it's bad.
Oh, hey, relax, man. You're back.
Hello.
Oh, hey, big time. I'm sorry, we didn't catch that a few minutes ago. It is not 2v2, even though it looked like it. It was free for all.
I got that.
Alright, no. Yeah. Hold on.
What you doing, man?
Might be stupid, but I'm tired of getting hit by your commander, so I'm gonna blow it up.
Okay. He was still out from the first time,
Yeah.
I think, so... he
Yeah,
only
your
cost
commanders
7.
have made it the whole game.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So what you doing now?
I'll attack you with a 5/5.
5/5 and hexproof.
Yes.
What else does it do? Anything?
Nope. Nothing else.
It's just the size of.
Yeah, of green permanents. Oh wait, no, I only have 4 green permanents now, I guess, don't I? So, I took that down. Never mind.
Today,
I'm not gonna
like,
attack.
Has
Go!
a-
Go DM!
I got a
Go
blocker.
DM! Yeah, sorry, yeah. I forgot to change the
Oh god. What?
This turn, might I say, is miraculous.
Oh no.
What does that do?
Terminus, put all creatures on the bottom of their owner's libraries.
I freaking love that card.
What? Oh my god. Oh, I wish I had not wasted that just drawing.
So what happens
you
to
with a relaxed man.
tokens? Do
They
die?
evaporate.
But does that count as dying?
No. They evaporate.
Oh. Interesting.
Yeah. Poof.
So ice.
And then the card that has absolutely no use in this game right now because of the Wave of Vitriol, a Dwarven Miner that blows up non-basic lands. Pass turn.
Okay.
Wow.
So
I thought you went
Like an
left and came back, but
Draw.
it is. I'm glad you've been with us all evening.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Look, a mountain.
Yay.
Ooh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
6,
7.
7. Does your commander have haste?
No. Wait. Although that dwarf pulls up land. Okay.
Non-basics.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're fine. Past turn.
What are you doing?
Okay.
Trying to get her back.
You should leave that unless you're going to go do something with it because we try to set it up and.
I'm playing it.
Okay.
leave them out here?
Yeah, unless you're going to
Sure.
play with it. No way we just put it over the back and it doesn't get.
I'm just cleaning up so you hang out.
Oh god, Jayberry, what are you doing? She's
Play
counting
my
mana.
commander.
Cool.
Commander. I'll
this?
tick
Who's your
her up to make a
That was not played.
an elf. No.
Who's your commander?
Please.
Done?
I think you missed it. I knew that wasn't right.
Oh.
Yeah.
So she's 5 now.
I will play a detection tower. Until
Removes
end of turn,
hexproof.
it removes hexproof from all
shit.
creatures and opponents until the end of the next turn. But
Yeah.
fuck it.
One of those.
I needed to Paula. Done. Because I have a blocker.
Okay.
Oh wait. Do you have any creature you give him the heb?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I have an elf wood.
Yes. Untap. Keep draw. Fine. I'm playing Tectonic Reformation.
Need to land your card at 16.
Except I'm jazz hands currently.
Attack.
Yeah, because.
So by the way, I got the best news ever today.
Yeah.
It is supposed to be 45 degrees on Saturday night.
That's awful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Today was nice. Oh, I mean, I wore a scarf and a hoodie and a jacket.
So given the deck you played earlier,
I'm
I should have
going
played that
to
deck.
Uh-oh.
attack
What's
free.
this?
It's one of my
Okay.
Block
personal.
ahead, sorry.
Sure.
Who's the commander though?
It's not. It's a 60.
And what
And
do
I'm
you-
just
It's
done.
just double
You
sleep
get
because there's a lot of super
mana?
expensive cards.
I
in there.
do, but it
Oh wait,
doesn't
so
matter.
I lose 3 life, right?
No.
Oh,
This
these are
creature comes
terrible.
blocked.
Yeah.
I lose 3 life, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Jeez.
What's that?
I hate it when you got this.
That's alright.
It's
Totally
it's
play
Knights
this.
and
Go
Angels.
ahead.
It's Knights and Angels.
Yes, it's great.
Oh, that's your commander deck with the new set?
No,
Oh,
that's
wait.
actually I was gonna play this earlier instead of the Bongbrew Witch deck, and based on the quality of the deck she played, I probably should have.
Do you have any artifacts or enchantments over
Nope.
there I should know
You know you
about?
have to thank for my deck, right?
Oh, I know exactly who made that deck.
Thanks, Jake. We sat down and we talked about it, like what we wanted to do and stuff, but
Yeah, I was like, I know most of these cards. They look familiar.
Y'all.
Wolves. Although I should probably take out like the elf sub-theme and put in a splash of black so I can use the new Garrick.
yeah.
Like, because he's too good to pass up.
Right.
Like,
7.
oh.
Allosaurus Rider. Power and toughness equal to 1 plus the number of lands I control. The number of lands I control is 10.
Yup.
It's an 11/11.
Okay. Wow.
That's the thing.
Pass.
Alright, let's see if I can actually do anything. Is your commander tapped?
Yes. I don't care if you kill Tybalt. Like, I can't take him down to, like, get anything.
I'm gonna attack Tybalt.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna tap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm gonna reel 7 cards from the top of my library and put all dwarves and vehicles in my hand.
How?
Read her bottom ability. People forget about that one.
Okay.
Alright, 1, vehicle. 2, dwarf. 3, nothing. 4, dwarf. 5, 6, dwarf. 7, dwarf.
Nice. There you go.
And these get shuffled back in, right?
No, bottom. I
Bottom in
think.
random order.
Not that it matters. but
Yeah.
You're not getting that far down.
Yeah. No, there's no way. Alright, I'm good.
Hey, a tap. Upkeep. Draw. Well.
That worked pretty well.
There. Oh,
Dude, I got 5 cards.
God.
I mean, they're not the greatest cards,
Are
but
they
they're,
7
they're-
dwarves?
I got 2 of the 7 dwarves.
Do you still have the 7 dwarf out right now?
No, it died a long time ago.
Oh, right.
It died a long time ago.
Do you think? I feel like 7 dwarves would be more effective in a 60
Okay.
card deck.
It's
So
pretty effective.
I'm
in
tapping
Commander.
3 to play
That's
Hezareth's
it.
Monarch.
I mean, you saw me just draw 7
One less.
7 cards. I can
Whenever you
usually get
cast
3 or 4
one,
in
you
play.
may-
Discard
And
deck.
again, jazz hands.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
you're probably going to want to do the cool thing with Freyleys versus, yeah, like. "Hey,
Good night,
there you
guys.
go."
Good night, man.
Yeah, good night.
Untap.
I
Upkeep. Draw.
really am like, I want more coffee.
Oh yeah, I hit that around like, I don't know, 2 a.m. I'm like, no.
So I'm curious. I haven't actually played this
Doesn't
card
really
before.
keep me up.
Hello, Slothy.
Oh, come on.
You
Hello.
didn't quite. Hello.
Conqueror. So you saw me reveal it and put it in my hand, right?
Yeah.
So earlier I revealed that.
Oh, I've got that one.
So when it
And
attacks,
Pirates.
exile it at the end of combat and return it transformed. But what does it do when it transforms? Draw and discard. Draw. Oh. Oh, that's a pretty cool thing. All right.
I
That's
thought
pretty neat.
about putting it in this deck just
I got a
because
Creeper Hulk.
I forget what the Creeper Hulk does.
So pay 2 until end of turn. Target creature I control gains base power and toughness 5/5 and
Yep.
gains trample.
Yeah.
Yes. There's a lot going on. Ugh. So many choices. Alright,
You're
sure, I'll
playing Magic the Gathering. We're playing Commander.
minus
Yep.
Freyleys, take her down to 1, and draw a card for each green creature I control. That's 3.
I have been killed.
You are dead.
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 Oh.
All right.
Oh, we're playing Magic.
Yup.
Magic the Gathering.
Yup.
The gathering of silly mages. And I am literally playing dwarves and cars. Vroom vroom. Sulk sulk sulk.
Mystic.
Grumble grumble grumble. Vroom vroom.
I will pay.
Like Mad Max, but
But with
Two.
but with dwarves.
yes.
To make your
That
elf
next in
druid
the
a
mind.
5/5.
Yeah, 5/5 with trample.
Oh, okay.
And do you only have 1 creature over there?
I have a 1/2 blocker and a 3/3 tapped creature.
Alright. I'm gonna attack you
Okay.
with my 11/11 non-trampler.
Oh, jeez.
A 5/5 trampler.
You realize you could turn it into a 5/5, but who cares?
She turned the elf one
Yeah.
into a 5/5.
Yeah, this is a 5/5 trampler.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, I'll block the big one and take
Okay.
5.
All right, pass turn.
I'm at 16.
Ew.
Oh,
Yep.
shit.
Yep. I think Jayberry's got this one.
No, I don't think so.
Unless I
know,
get
elves
something.
are-
You.
I have
crazy.
the heb right now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have anything interesting, and my hands are empty.
All right.
Like,
You also have the
What
most
you got going on
life.
over there?
I have 2 blockers, a 5/5 trampler and.
I want to play something, but it's just gonna kind of fuck with. What is this? What is that thing? Enchantment.
it's cycling.
What is it though?
An enchantment.
Each
Tectonic
land
Reformation.
in my hand has cycling 1 mountain.
Oh, gotcha.
So, and guess what? Jazz hands.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
All right. Solemn Recruit.
what does that do?
It's a 2/2 double striking dwarf, and if a permanent leaves the battlefield, I put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then I mean, she's just gonna blow over us with 5/5 tramplers next turn. Jesus.
I like how the
Oh,
angry
Or
slider
not.
looks.
I know, it's Aragog.
And like the little.
if it weren't for fucking Ulamog, I would have been able to play both things this turn. And
Well, shit happens.
I'm gonna play a Sanctum Gargoyle and return the Cataclysm Gearhulk to my hand.
Okay.
Pass turn.
Okay. Untap. Anything interesting? Is that interesting? Sure. Why not? Because I have nothing better to do.
Felden's Cane,
I'm
shuffle your
gonna-
Great Library.
yeah.
Shuffle it back in.
So this gets exiled, but everything else gets shuffled back in,
Bless you.
and that's my turn. Like,
There you go.
oh shit!
What?
Shouldn't have done that. Oh well. Because had I got that one thing that I showed you, I could pull back the Jaya's thing, and
Yeah.
I fucked that up. Oh well. But that card's more so like if I had gotten the cycling early on, it makes sure like all my stuff doesn't get like bogged.
Yeah, we're dead. We can't stop the Creeper Hulk.
7 for a Renzrun Packmaster.
Oh.
When there's a battlefield, I sack it unless I exile another elf I control. I'll sack the Elvish Mystic.
Okay.
And a Timberwatch elf.
Yeah.
So this will be under exile. Let's see. And this makes Death Touch Wolves.
Mm-hmm.
Did you? I'm. You should have just killed me.
What?
She might
Always kill
just still
DM.
kill you.
I don't know if she has enough tramplers, but let's find out.
Yeah. Well,
She'll
maybe I
find
played
out.
it wrong. Yeah. Well,
Do you remember what I pulled back to my hand?
no.
Everybody
never
chooses
remember.
one creature, one artifact, one enchantment.
Yeah.
Full swing.
Let's see what I
Not much
have.
left. I mean, I'll kill everything because I'm only going to get one thing at the end of my turn anyway.
Oh, can you flash that in?
No, but I mean, I'll throw everything under the bus because I'm going to have to sack it at the end of my turn anyway.
Well, what do I have left? 1.
Mine will go a little bit better than it did the last time. Meaning my board state wouldn't change. But
Yeah, literally, you get exactly what you have. You get exactly what you have in play. That's hilarious.
So
And you're at 39? Yeah, you'd be able to mill. But, I mean, if you draw land, at least you can cycle it.
yeah.
Right? So, at least you'll draw something that's not a land next turn.
Well, the only thing is that it probably wouldn't have worked anyway because I only have 1, 2, 3 creatures that aren't summoning sick that can attack you, so it wouldn't have mattered.
Gotcha. Alright, so... Yeah.
It wouldn't have mattered. I mean, I'm gonna do what I can, I guess, because
Sure.
I kind of have to
Right.
at this point, and I probably shouldn't have played, the Timber Watch and the Renaissance Packmaster, but here they are. Yeah, because I forgot what that did, but that's fine. We'll just have to deal with it.
And the funny thing is, there are 7 board wipes in this deck. I've drawn a Terminus and this. All game.
Well, I promising I have neat cycling
This
things
deck
in
is
here.
literally designed to wipe the board and leave the vehicles in play.
So
the new dwarves can come and crew the
it kills
vehicles.
every creature in play except for one.
Everybody gets to choose an artifact, an enchantment, a planeswalker, and a creature, and sack the rest.
When Ithonea wipes, she doesn't
Okay.
kill those, correct?
Does sack
She only kills creatures. She doesn't kill the art. The
sack
vehicles.
means they die, right?
You sacrifice them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright. Well, I will. You know what?
Swing with 3, make them 15s, and off we go.
No, I'm not gonna do that.
Okay.
Because I need to save the mana, I think, for something else. Unfortunately. Because, I shouldn't have played things. So, I'm not going to take it back.
And they always play things.
Yeah, but, I'm going to hit you with my, how many creatures do you have over there?
3.
Oh. 5/5 Trampler and my 11/11. 12/12. No, wait. 13/13. Non-trampler.
I'm gonna kill your 5/5 with a 3/3 double striking dwarf.
Okay.
Right.
And we're gonna block the 11 with something?
Sanctum Gargoyle.
Okay.
Done?
Yep.
Alright, untap, upkeep, draw.
Oh, boys.
Slayer's Stronghold, which actually is exactly what,
What
I was
does
hoping
it
to
do?
get. Target creature gets +2 in vigilance until the end of turn for a red and a white. So, alright, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Cataclysmic Gearhulk. I will choose this creature, actually.
So we sack every...
You choose 1 creature, 1 planeswalker. Do you have any artifacts or enchantments?
No.
So sack everything but 1 creature, 1 planeswalker.
Okay.
Keep your lands, obviously.
I'm just checking to make sure I didn't bury a mana rock or something in there. Okay, so when this leaves the battlefield, I get this back.
Sure.
Okay. So that's 1, 2...
I would save the Allosaurus.
Yeah, 1, 2...
That's gonna fuck shit
That's
up.
1, 2, 3...
And
4.
you know,
I lose 4 creatures.
yeah,
Okay.
because you should have your Allosaurus, the thing that
So-
came back.
4 creatures died.
Uh-oh, are you gonna get beasts?
Yeah, I am gonna get beasts.
Beasts.
Fresh meat.
Yep,
So I get 4 3/3 beasts.
you got it.
Although I guess these don't go to the graveyard,
Right.
so I only get 2.
Oh yeah, well tokens hit the graveyard and then evaporate.
Okay, so
So if they die,
4,
yeah, you get 4.
So I get 4 3/3 beasts, which I do have.
And just because I'm gonna play a Duragar Hedge Mage and blow up 1 artifact and 1 enchantment. They're the only ones in play.
Fucker.
Pass turn.
You've done
What was
quite
that?
enough,
You
sir.
get to cycle, you say.
Not anymore.
Although It's a cycling land, so
You might as well do
suck
it.
it.
These are yours, right? No?
Yeah, I just left them up for you guys.
We got plenty up there.
Fine.
Yeah.
Fuck you guys.
So
I
this
am
is 2 beasts.
going
Hey
to
man.
tap 3 and play Chandra's Spitfire.
How was your demo? Was it a demo?
Maneuver +3. Nice.
And
So the
Pass
precons are fairies. There were fairies and knights. So one deck is a blue-green fairies deck, and the other deck is a red-white knights deck.
Oh yeah, I was looking at those.
Yeah,
Actually, come
you
out
didn't
with
actually
more.
play like a
I mean,
thematic
I play
deck.
all.
You literally just played a beat you in the face with cool Eldraine cards deck.
Yeah, basically. Well, when I said theme, I literally just meant fairy tale. Theme.
Oh, that's funny.
So we tried to choose 80% of the cards.
We are going to play the Brawl deck
Cards and
soon, maybe next week. I ordered them. We'll see when they come.
Do you have any artifacts over
Nope.
there?
No artifacts or enchantments.
Okay.
I've got it. 2/3/3 2/3/3 dwarves.
2/3/3 dwarves.
ooh,
Alright.
But again, 39 life, 16 life.
Yeah.
The fuck is wrong with you?
7? No, 6. Tap.
I desperately want this card, and TCG player has like a 10% back.
Which one? What card?
This one. This guy. Can I zoom? No.
Ooh.
I love the art on it.
beautiful.
Like, in fact, I need to find who did it and be like, can I get a print?
Alright, I played a Kalonian
Crowns.
Twin Grove.
I want so much art.
that
I'm
do?
very excited
It's
for
power
all
and
this
toughness equal to the number of forests I control. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I have 2, 12, 12 tree folk warriors.
Ints.
Mm-hmm.
Wanna-
I have 2, 12, 12 ends.
Great.
That's the appropriate response, yeah.
I think Jayberry's got this.
That's what we said a couple of turns ago.
I'm trying.
If you didn't fucking hit me with Ulamog, I could have done something about all of it.
Shit happens. Ethan, I believe we are also all tired and we'll be ending
Yeah.
after this game.
Probably.
Yeah.
But we are back next Thursday at 9 p.m.
Yep,
And-
every Thursday.
Almost every Thursday. Check the Facebook if
Alright.
crazy things happen and we can't play or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move to
Combat.
combat.
Yeah.
We too love Magic the Gathering. Big,
Yeah,
big
but
nerds
one
for
of them
it.
is doing nothing for me.
Yeah, I know.
So,
The nowhere devils,
yeah.
just can't gain life. Gotcha. Alright, these 3 down here are summoning 6, and
Yep.
they are out of the running.
Could have played it last turn if I had those lands.
Cool.
Yeah.
Then I could have flipped it and returned the Cataclysmic Gearhulk again.
I totally.
What you doing?
Alright.
No, that
and
guy is not
combat.
actually a girl. He is our host,
I'm
the GM.
gonna throw my
He is our resident.
11,
A resident male.
and 2
Resident male.
white beasts.
Aw.
I'm
kind enough to
blocking the
host us.
11-11, and I'm gonna take the 6.
It is
And
predominantly ladies. It's always DM and 3
what do you
ladies.
have over there? How big are those?
3/3s. 3/3 dwarves. 2/3/3 dwarves.
2/3/3 beasts.
You got it.
You wanna?
That's it.
Yep, that's it. You want them to die?
I'm gonna kill 1 and take 3.
All right.
He does have lovely hair though.
Thank you. I think it's very pretty. You
Um,
done?
Yep.
Salaplasma, I am also looking forward to game night.
All right, just to be ridiculous. To be utterly ridiculous. 1 of the 7 dwarves,
Oh
Nice.
no.
2 of the 7 dwarves,
No.
and 3 of the 7 dwarves.
So how big are they? 3 threes?
2, 3, 4. They're all 5/5s.
All right. Yep.
Salaplasma, after the holidays, we should talk about doing some regular stuff.
What do you have floating around over there? Lots of ends.
Lots of M's.
I have 2 12
Ent board.
ends.
I'm gonna attack Tybalt for 3.
All of them.
Alright.
Well, she could block, but I don't
Yeah.
think she's going to. And the Pollock became tapped, so I'm gonna draw 2 and put every dwarf and vehicle in my hand.
Like a regular.
I have a
something,
vehicle,
something.
and that goes on the bottom. It is a mobile garrison. Whenever it attacks, I untap another target, artifact, or creature I control.
Not that we won't play and hang out many times before then, but yeah.
What? Tybalt got attacked.
I'm
Want
assuming
him
you're gonna let it die.
Yes. Thank Pete.
Alright, you are up. I played 3 of the 7 dwarves.
Okay.
So they're 5/5s.
Just for the chaos factor.
Nice. Okay.
Is it 2/2?
This is a weird
3/3.
deck.
Why?
It just. I feel like it doesn't do your normal.
I'm not drawing any of
so-
my board wipes.
Oh, okay.
Plus, I could do more if I didn't have to sacrifice 3 lands to an Ulamog Annihilator.
I forgot that Ulamog had Annihilator.
Right.
RTFC.
think
I
I'm
need
dead.
Casey's RTFC
Go.
sleeves
Yeah.
so badly.
Yep.
We should look into getting some Coven sleeves.
Like, nothing
Yeah,
good.
we're done. She's got it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not
I love
necessarily.
these.
Ah!
I think Richard writes.
Gone!
I mean,
one?
they're not.
Gone!
I mean, they're not trample.
No.
Who are they? Oh, okay.
Gone!
Why do you keep yelling? Stop.
Because of the card that's next.
Stop yelling.
Who did the one on the bottom? I don't think I didn't see that one before.
I'll move to combat.
Steven
Sure.
something.
DM, I'm
Beautiful.
attacking you with
Yeah, I've never seen this one.
basically everything.
Yep, show me what you got.
I can't attack with everything probably. I'll untap with that. Alright. Hold on, let me count my land again.
Man, I want a questing beast.
Is that...
No.
Okay.
So yeah, one, yeah, so 2.
I mean, is there something you're going to do with your land?
Fuck shit.
13.
Oh,
Now I'm
right.
just counting
So they're
for
13
the,
13s.
So they're 13
Yeah.
13s now. This one
I'm going to block those 3
is
big ones. Just tell me
lands I
what's left
control,
over.
So this one is
Yeah, just tell me what's left over. 2 beasts.
so yeah, so 13s,
Yeah, I'll
And
take the
3
6 from the...
beasts.
I'll take the
Set
9
9.
from the beast.
Many.
9 from the beast.
I'm at 4.
Alright,
What else?
that's it.
Oh,
Not attacking you.
I don't think it
That's
matters.
probably the biggest threat to me is
Do you
where I'm
have...
at right now.
Do you have anything untapped?
I have 2 creatures untapped.
I'm going to swing at you with everything.
Alright.
5, 10,
Uh,
15, 18.
Okay. What are the 2 biggest?
A 3/3 and 3 4/4s.
Wait a
3
second.
5/5s.
Didn't you block the big things? How do you
Oh yeah,
door?
sorry. I'm gonna
Hey,
swing at you
good.
with the 3/3.
Yeah, wait, I'm glad you caught that
Yeah,
because
thank you.
my brain was
Like-
zoned out.
Yeah.
You're swinging at me with a 3/3.
3/3.
It's nap time.
Alright, I'll block with one of my druids.
All right, I'm gonna give you the game.
Alright.
Which would have actually killed her if I had the right lands.
Shit happens.
I'm gonna do 8 damage to each creature,
Alright.
and you're gonna kill me with the Twin Groves, and we're done here.
Oh, and I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Then. Okay. Yay!
If I had those 3 more lands, it would have been 11 to each
Well,
of them.
let's see, I would kill you and then
I
it would take a couple
like
of turns to kill
yeah,
you.
like, but this was my next set.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching.
Yes,
we're gonna
thank
stop.
you.
Yeah, so much for an early night. It's almost 2 anyway.
Yeah.
Oh god.
But thanks everybody for watching. We
We'll
will see
get
you.
better at this eventually, I swear.
We'll see you same
We'll get
time next
faster
week.
someday.
Shout out to our Patreon.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
everybody. We do have a Patreon, yada, yada, yada. Coven MTG. We are that on
Coven
every
MTG on
channel.
everything.
Yep.
Is this one of yours, Val?
It
Yep.
seems
All
too
right.
blue.
So long, folks. Good night.
It's too blue.
Thanks for hanging out.
Where's that stop button?
Good night.
Good night.
Night.